Welcome into the show. This is Jono.
And this is Micah, and you're listening to Medium Retro.
Micah Thomas.
What's up, Jono?
Just hanging out.
Just chilling.
We're in the dungeon. We're ready to talk part 2. Which, for you non-French speakers, I know I speak French very well. That is part 2 of Ocarina of Time.
Indeed you do.
Yes.
We slaged that first half, if I do say so myself. 3 hours into the discussion. This is episode 2. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
So we had to do this in 2 parts. Because had we not, it would have been potentially a 6-hour episode.
And as much as I like people and people like me and podcasters like listening to podcasts and, podcast listeners like listening to podcasts, creators create podcasts, 6 hours just seems too long.
Way too long. That's Dan Carlin hardcore history levels right there. And if I'm being honest, Micah, I think he is the pinnacle of podcast. I don't think there's anybody better at telling stories, sharing information than Dan Carlin. So we're not there.
Yeah, we'll get there one day. Maybe one day we'll get a chance to meet and high five Dan.
Yeah, I think he's the best in the biz.
Well, hell yeah.
Welcome into Medium Retro. Today we're going to talk about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina in our part 2 discussion of Adult Link's adventures. But this is your weekly dose of retro gaming fun. You come in to the podcast to listen about old school games, and we brought to you one of the greatest games ever made today. And so if you are a fan, we really appreciate you leaving us reviews on your favorite podcast apps and on YouTube. And if you can check us out on Patreon or Medium Retro just to see what's out there, we'd appreciate that as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. And as always, guys, follow us on Twitch and Twitter at Medium Retro and on Instagram at Medium Retro Podcast. Be sure to like us over on YouTube, leave some comments, and if you want to hear anything discussed on the show, if you want a correction for something we said wrong, something we said that upsets you, if you want to leave a manifesto, if any of these things that you want to be discussed, talked about, or expressed on the show, drop us a line. We'll read it, as long as it's not terribly offensive. Also, generally speaking, we love interaction, so slap a like, you can leave us comments.
Interact with us.
Whatever you feel like doing. We do want to interact with you.
Yeah, touch us digitally.
Yes.
Which, that can mean, your fingers or your digits, so that might actually sound a little bit more aggressive than I wanted it to.
Touch us, but only in the realm of the digital world.
Yeah. Maybe,
please.
You don't actually touch us with your digits. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. We are going to get to that, but I think that opening requires an adult beverage of sorts. So we got a new one for you today. Micah, tell us about it.
So this is a beer. It's from Comstock, Michigan. By Bell's. It is the Kalamazoo Stout.
Now, the brewery, if you're going to go visit Bell's, it's in Kalamazoo. I'm from beautiful Toledo, Ohio, the original Glass City. And I've always wanted to go to Kalamazoo. It's one of my favorite breweries from back home. We were saying earlier that we've been trying to bring Colorado beverages to the show since we live here, but there's so many breweries we love all over the country. We just want to highlight our favorites.
Yeah. And in all honesty, it's kind of nice to branch out here a little bit, We've talked about, a lot of really cool stuff locally. Let's talk internationally, Let's, beverage-wise, touch people across the world.
Oh, yeah. You can literally touch everybody digitally now, so let's do it.
Well, I hope that this delicious beer tickles the inside of your ears as much as it's going to tickle the inside of our mouths.
Yes. Ooh. I'm going to crack mine. Oh, yeah, and here is the bottle opener for Mr. Thomas himself.
Yes, and I'm going to also tickle your ears with this little, sound.
That actually sounded really good in my ears. They feel tingly.
I timed it and everything,
So yes, we have the Kalamazoo Stout.
Oops.
The original 1988 recipe.
I'm also an original 1988 recipe.
You are.
as it turns out.
I'm a dusty old 1987 recipe.
Hell yeah.
So cheers, sir.
Cheers. Now this flavor, it's roasty.
It's very roasty.
You know, it reminds me of a chocolatey Rausch beer.
Rausch beers are pretty smoky, right? This is like pretty heavy on the roast side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Very coffee forward too.
Coffee, dark chocolate. These traditional things that you get with a stout from America, with the bringing the smoky as well. This is a campfire s'mores. If you used 99% cacao, no sweetness.
Yeah, because it is
chocolate.
not sweet at all.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted, man. We're in winter.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been very cold lately. Because in Colorado, in Denver, it gets cold as fuck if you're in the mountains. But in Denver, it doesn't necessarily get that cold in the city the whole winter. It gets cold at times. I mean, it'll get to negative degrees for sure for like a week in a row.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like 50 degrees. And it's been 50 degrees like this whole week. So
true. And 50 degrees in Colorado is t-shirt weather.
yeah, it's so different.
It's sunny. It's dry. The cold here is not cold.
I'm not joking. I walked through the park today, and there were people in shorts and t-shirts running around throwing the frisbee.
Yep.
50 degrees out.
I saw that shit too.
Yeah. So, I still wanted to pretend like it was like a Nordic winter here and get a stout.
The brutal, overcast, negative degree winter is bearing down on the soul, and this is bringing us back up.
Yeah, because in Michigan, it is probably soul-crushing right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you know up north in like Illinois and Michigan, it's so overcast, cloudy. The Great Lakes really add to a sense of gloominess. I love it. I miss it. I miss the gloomy winters.
It is nice. The lake effect makes things extra cold. Your bones will shiver.
Mm-hmm. Dude, just that whipping wind.
Mm-hmm. But welcome in. We appreciate y'all joining, listening to us chat about some delicious beers. And before we get into the main topic of the show, we have a little opening segment for you. Today is another rendition of Major Tunage.
A lovely segment in which we discuss a track or specific soundtrack of a video game.
Yes, sir. Would you like to go first or second?
I'm going to go first because I took the easier way out here.
You probably chose Ocarina of Time.
Yep, and I chose Soraya song.
Wow! Hey, you know what?
Or Saria
it's
song.
that
however you wanna say
episode.
it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, so this is just a reoccurring song in Zelda. In general, it's a really cool, it's a great song. It's an upbeat ditty. It usually serves as background music for places related to forests or woods in Zelda. And also every fucking Goron loves this song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great time. It's a good oldie. Always think of that, old school green-haired friend of ours. Whenever I hear it, it's a good one.
For me, it's one of my top 3 probably favorite songs in the game. There's 12 melodies you learn. I don't even necessarily know if it's like the song that I would put on if I want to have in the background when I'm working or something, because I actually love listening to video game music when I'm working on things.
Yeah.
But it's just the most memorable. Like I've always remembered this song. A lot of the songs in this game I'd kind of forgotten or I couldn't remember off the fly because it had been so long since I played, but I always remembered this song.
This is one that immediately transports you back whenever you hear it. The various versions of this song out there are great. Anytime you listen to anything like The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, any of those kind of like lo-fi hip-hop Zelda beats, this is always number one on those mixes. Also, it's just like really fun to listen to. Full orchestra. It's cool. I like it. So there you go. That's my song. Probably possibly my favorite video game song.
Ever.
Possibly.
Whoa.
I'd have to think about that, but it's up there.
Fair. People are going to be mad at me for this one because I said in our favorite games of 2020 I would stop talking about Persona 5.
Hell yeah.
You fools. I will never. So I had to bring this one up. I've actually talked about it on the show before. And I don't think I did this on a Major Tunage from what I looked at, but I could be wrong. This is a song from Persona 5. It's kind of RPGs often have like the hub town where you go to and it's your safe place. Well, this has that too. It's not a town. It's your bedroom and the coffee shop where you work at and where your guardian is taking care of you. I'd have to go into the whole backstory of like where you're living and everything. But it's the song that plays when you're there. It's one of those things that this game, I played it so much, it'd be on in the background that I fell in love with the song. It felt like a safe song, you know, to me, just in my normal life. And I use this song as background music when I work all the time. There is a 10-hour loop of Beneath the Mask on YouTube. And I will put that song on and just leave it on for the entire workday sometimes. Just at a very low volume. It's in the background, even when I'm on phone calls, just so I have some sound going around. That particular version is the Beneath the Mask rainy day version. It's got like some thunderstorm noises. It's a very slow, methodic, like a melodic jazz version of it. But there's many versions. The soundtrack's amazing. It's one of my favorite soundtracks ever, which I've said on the show before. But check that out. Beneath the Mask, the rainy day version on YouTube, the 10-hour loop. If you're ever working and you need something very relaxing in the background.
Hell yeah. Well, there we go. A couple of good songs for a couple of good video games.
Yes, sir. We are moving into the guts.
Yeah.
The guts now.
The guts and the butts.
Yeah, the guts and the butts.
That works. I couldn't think of anything else better, but that does work.
I mean, the guts leads to the butts. So
yeah, dude. Ultimately, the guts do lead to the butts.
Yes, sir. So now, background of this episode. Well, we already went through the background on the last show.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through game facts again like we do every episode and some fun facts. A lot of this stuff is just going to be repeat. Well, some of the game facts will, but we'll dip our toes in what we talked about a little bit last episode, kind of recap the gameplay and everything, but very briefly. We wanted to tailor some of these game facts and fun facts towards the 3DS version, and quite frankly, there's just not as much information and fun facts to talk about. The entire first part of this show is definitely going to be quicker than last episode.
Yeah.
And just a typical episode, because we know the meat, the guts and the butts is very dense with
very
the
dense.
Adult Link saga that we're going to go through. So, just prepare. Just giving you a little heads up. So, Michael, why don't you take us through the game facts?
Cool. So, the meats and pots, the guts and the butts. We're going to talk about Grezzo a little bit here. They're a developer that worked on the 3DS remake here. And they're actually known to work with Nintendo a lot, especially when it comes to Zelda remakes. They developed the Majora's Mask 3D and also the new iterations of Link's Awakening on the Nintendo Switch. They're a big name, a big player in modern Nintendo, but they killed it with these two remakes. Before I played through this all the way through on the 3DS, I also recently played through Majora's Mask, another classic. But yeah, it works so well in the Nintendo 3DS, and I really can't say enough about how well they handled this. They really did the 3D effects and everything else, the upping the ante on the graphics. They did a good job.
Yeah, no, it's very well done. Fantastic. Yeah. Now, how did you feel about Majora's Mask? Because I haven't played that game in so long, and I did not love it as a child.
So I never played through it originally back in the day. The only time I actually played through a little bit was whenever it came to the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
There was originally, so you got the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and the Master's Quest when you pre-ordered the Wind Waker game for the GameCube. And I don't remember whenever this other version came out, it was in connection, or you had to get it through a special way of buying it. But there was a version that had Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and also Majora's Mask on the GameCube. That's the first time I ever played through any of this game. I had a friend who owned it. I borrowed it a little bit, played it just a smidgen. So I didn't really have much experience until recently, but I loved it. In all honesty, I loved the game. I thought the atmosphere was strange. It was an awkward game, whereas Ocarina of Time does have its serious moments. Majora's Mask doesn't really try too hard to find those moments. It's a goofy, weird game that goes off on tangents. You have weird characters that get even weirder than in Ocarina of Time. It's a direct sequel, but I would say that it's more like, it just feels like a long side quest.
Yeah.
To Ocarina of Time. And it's a fun, weird game that uses a lot of the same concepts that are introduced in Ocarina of Time in different weird ways. So highly recommended. If you've never played it before, Go spend $20, get it off eBay for the 3DS and do it.
I mean, I think we should do an episode at some point. I don't know. I'm so tentative to play that game for whatever reason. Because I didn't love it when I was younger. It had a weird vibe to me.
It's got a goofball, odd, weird vibe for sure. But also, like, I relate to that, so I like it.
It's goofball, but it's also kind of dark, though. I mean, it has... I don't know.
Let me paint you a picture. It's goofball, right? But it's the goofball who stays up till 5 o'clock in the morning in their bedroom on the internet talking to weird random strangers doing strange things on the internet. That's the weird vibe.
Posting on Reddit under a name that no one knows he's posting under.
I'm not talking like weird, like bad weird. I'm talking like just the weird fucking tangents you get off on.
Okay.
You know, not get off on.
No, hey, I didn't go there, Mikey. You went there. My facial expression did not say that's where I was going. You went there.
No, I went there. But what I'm saying is that it's just like...
How could you?
It's the loner stoner, you know what I mean, of Zelda titles. It's the strange, out there, you smoke too much weed and you're watching weird anime at 5 o'clock in the morning in your bedroom with your colored lights on. That's the game that it is, you know?
And then you write a short story and you post it online and get other weird... tangents from that.
That's Majora's Mask. You know.
Okay, all right.
But you know, one of the things about Majora's Mask that kept me from playing it back in the day is that it required a graphical expansion pack for the N64. I did not own one myself, so I never played it.
See, that expansion pack came with one of the games. Was it the Donkey Kong game?
I think it was Donkey Kong. I know that Rogue Squadron did not require it, but you could actually use it to upgrade the graphics on Rogue Squadron. I think it was Donkey Kong.
There might have been a version of Majora's Mask that came with it too, because I don't think I ever owned the Donkey Kong 64 game. I played it at my friend's house, but I never owned that.
I would say when you rented Majora's Mask, it did not come with it.
Yeah,
that's why.
Because I own Majora's Mask, and I think that's where I got the little expansion card there.
With that being said, it's a weird game. Yeah, I think now more than ever, it's worth going back to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. If you've ever gotten to weird colored lights, if you've ever gotten to vaping, I don't know. I'm just going to do a bunch of random stuff. If you've ever gotten into...
Karen videos that you watch just nonstop.
If you've ever gotten into breeding hamsters.
Oh.
If you've ever gotten into driving your car at night with the lights off.
If you've ever built a ferret tube from his cage in your basement into your 2-story bedroom up top.
Yeah, totally. If you've ever drawn a face on the hamster ball and let him go wild.
If you've ever
your ass off.
Photocopied your butt and then written a love letter to your ex-girlfriend.
If you've ever left bathroom graffiti.
Just in general.
Yeah, anything.
You know, someday if I ever own a house, I've always wanted to have like this one bathroom that I paint the walls black and people just can write whatever the fuck they want. Just like the grungy, dirty punk bar bathrooms that I used to go to growing up.
Dude, I've probably my life is probably shorter because of all those kind of bathrooms I've been in, but I also miss those so bad.
They're the best,
these
dude.
days.
They had like the old trough. They would just be like a trough with shit written everywhere and be the dirtiest shithole bathrooms, but they were just the best times.
There was this coffee shop that I really loved in Chicago, and it was grungy as fuck. It was like a punk coffee shop like that. The bathroom was that exactly. Band stickers, graffiti everywhere. The place was kind of a shithole. I loved it though. It was up in Logan Square. I missed the shit out of that place and all the places like that, you know. The venues, the bad bars, the really bad bars.
So that's Majora's Mask.
That's Majora's Mask. The bad shitty bars that you go to at, you know, that are open to 4 a.m.
That are still like your favorite places in the world. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. There you go.
I have a new appreciation for Majora's Mask based off of this little wormhole we went down there.
I'm glad I could do that for you.
Okay.
Well, sweet. So that's Grezzo. They made that, and they made Majora's Mask. They work with Nintendo quite a lot. Obviously, Nintendo published this version of Ocarina of Time as well. The director for the remake was Mikaharu Uiwa.
Sounds good.
Uiwa? I like the way that sounds, but I don't know if that's right. I hope that's right. Eiji Aonuma, Takao Shimizu, and Koichi Ishii.
Yeah.
Cool. Those are the producers. We got programmers Shun Moria, and then I think that all the other ones previously too listed on the original title. Them as well. Artist for the remake was Hirofuma Sakoi. I think we mentioned that name previously as well. Obviously, same composers: Koji Kondo, Mahito Yokota, and Takashi Hama.
Yeah, so Koji Kondo did everything in the first game. Mahito and Takeshi, they specifically just helped rearrange some things with oversight from Koji. So they didn't actually create any original music for this.
There's also, I think, if you played through the 3DS version at the very end, once all the regular credits roll, you actually get an orchestrated version of some of the themes while the second credits roll. Maybe we should, maybe they get that credit for that. I don't know.
Maybe they get that credit for sure. Because I actually did notice that the music changed. You're talking about when it kind of like fades to black. There are still some other things you see, but it changes the music big time. Yeah,
totally.
Cool,
sweet. Programmers, I think I already went through artists, composers. The platform, the Nintendo 3DS, sales were 4+ million at least. It's got to be more at this point, but also I've only ever bought this game secondhand, so what does that say? Release.
Just to bring that up, so we talked about how it was like 7.6 million total. So that means this game sold 4 million. It just kind of shows that back in the day, there just weren't as many people gaming.
That's true.
And we're in our sphere of hardcore gamers who play everything. We like games. We talk about it passionately. It's something we've loved our whole lives. And I just think we sometimes probably think some of these games were bigger than they were on like a total public scale.
Possibly, I suppose so. I think this is one of those games that had a lot to say as far as like culture and really impacted and influenced a lot of things, and people are familiar with it. But that also doesn't mean that people bought it, Blockbuster was huge back then. That's why I played it the first 17 times I played it,
That is true.
So yeah, I don't know.
That is true. When you really think about rental stores.
It's not so much of a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Now we download it for $60 and we just go with it.
I never download games when they first come out, though. There's just I'm so behind in games now.
Yeah. I'll say that a lot of times I wait until it goes on sale. I'm a cheapskate, and also I know I have 15 million titles to play through, so why pay $60 to put a game on a shelf until I get to it,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I almost never buy games when they first release. Now, I will tell you, I bought Persona 5 Royal when it first released. I will buy Persona 5 Strikers, which is like the 5-2 kind of sequel. So there are certain games I still buy, but for the most part, if it's not pressing,
I
wait.
I'll say though, Breath of the Wild 2, whenever that releases, I'm going to buy it.
When Breath of the Wild 2 releases, I will buy a Switch in Breath of the Wild 2.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Solid. But yeah, 4+ million sales at least. It was released in Japan on the 16th of June, 2011. That blows my mind because I feel like that was more recent than it was, but also, I guess not. Behind the times, that's me.
When you say it feels more recent, like you feel like 2011 should be closer in actual time to what the actual date is? Because that was a decade ago.
I know, but I feel like this got released in 2016. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I thought the same thing. I was shocked when I realized this came out in 2011.
Okay, but think about this. It's almost as far away from when the original game released as it is now from when that game came out. I mean, give or take like 3 years. That is crazy. But it's just crazy to think about because that seems like it wasn't that long ago when this actually came out, but it seems like forever and a fucking half ago when Zelda Ocarina of Time first came out.
True, but it just doesn't seem like the 3DS has been a defunct console for 4 years now, 5 years now.
Yeah, isn't that weird? It
is. It blows my mind. I honestly was baffled when I saw that it was 2011. I thought it was like 2015 also.
But I'm going to tell you, though, and I stand behind this statement, the 3DS is one of the best things that Nintendo has ever made. Regardless of the 3D aspects of it, the console's amazing. The digital titles they released for it are astounding, the amount of classics you can get. The games for the 3DS are underrated at best. And yeah, you get tons of great classic titles. And also worth mentioning, too, it can play all the DS games as well. So you can play the majority of Nintendo's best on this console.
Yeah.
And that's worth mentioning.
Well, I think that's a big reason why the 3DS is amazing and why I bought the 3DS is because it's a DS Plus. You know what I mean? It's like
totally.
The DS to me is one of the most underrated video game console devices ever created.
Well, you say underrated, but also if you look at the sales, it's one of the greatest selling consoles of all time.
It absolutely is, but no one talks about it. That's the weird thing, though. I guess it's underrated from a respect standpoint.
I agree.
People talk about the Game Boy all the time. I feel like people talk about the Game Boy Advance more than they talk about the 3DS. But the 3DS, that was a game changer, man.
Totally.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know about you.
A big tangent about it, but
I don't know about you, but I also still have my original DS as well, which can play Game Boy Advance games.
No, I'm an asshole and I sold it. I regret selling everything. I've told you. I've regretted at this point in my life. I regret selling anything ever video game related.
I hold on to things a lot. Typically, if I really liked them as a kid, my DS is one of those things. Now, I wish I still had my classic old school Game Boys. My Game Boy Color that I used to have broke and I got rid of it. I wish I'd never got rid of it. I would love to open that thing up and fix it. But I've recently gone back and bought a Game Boy Pocket. I've got a classic Game Boy as well that I play on occasion. So it's fun to go back to those things. I still have all the old games I used to own too. So it's a lot of fun going back. But I'm telling you, you don't need that shit because on the DS you can download almost all those Game Boy games digitally for like $2. So it's just a great system. It's a great console. Handheld, yes, but still awesome. The only downside is you can't put it on the TV.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. It would be nice to be able to see Link up there, looking so fresh on my fucking...
like an HDMI out or something that you can connect, yeah.
No, actually, that was a really popular thing in Japan, though. You used to be able to... There were, like, specialized shops that would mod it so that you could do out to a TV. Obviously, that doesn't exist anymore because this is a defunct console. But that being said, people did it. I wish I'd gotten in there when it was still a thing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what makes the Switch so magical. I think they just need, on the Switch, and I hope they have a new iteration soon.
Yeah, me too.
They need to update it. And again, if you're listening in the future, this is supposed to be an evergreen show where it's always whatever. So, maybe these little sidebar combos when we don't know what the future is are interesting. I hope the Switch does have a better internet multiplayer setup because it's apparently terrible. I don't own a Switch, but I've heard nothing but bad things from my friends who do have one.
Yes.
And they need to make more of their older games available because you've told me that they have not released everything as much as they should have.
Yeah, they're starting to do the good thing about like porting all the Wii U titles over, and they've also started putting back on remakes and stuff like that onto the the Switch, which is cool. But at the same time, I would like to see a larger classic Nintendo catalog. They do a really good job of NES and SNES titles going up for free on their sort of like digital console platform. But N64 titles are not to be seen. They do not even touch on Game Boy titles, which is, in my opinion, a travesty because it's a portable console.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the internet capabilities are absolute garbage. Playing online is always difficult. I think Nintendo, while the gameplay wise is very like forward thinking and like innovative, they need to get with the times when it comes to online play because it's a fucking hassle and I have to do anything online with the Switch. Case in point, I was playing Pokemon with my siblings the other day. I love that game. It's a great multiplayer experience, the new one. But it's hard to get shit paired up with people online. You have to go through 14 steps to get your Switch connected, and then you have to go through 14 steps to get your game connected to the online service that your Switch is already connected to. It's just very backwards, and they always do things in a weird way. And I know it's because it's a bunch of people who are making classic games on a new console, but at the same time, I think they need to like really hone the internet play because in all honesty, that's what the Nintendo platform is missing right now. It'd be really nice to be able to plug in a headset to my console too.
It's 2021, man. How do they not have some of these things?
I think in all honesty, they just thought they didn't need it. But, with games like, the Pokemon series and a lot of the new online stuff that they've been releasing, the small little games they've been releasing that are really cool, they're realizing that people have a thirst for this, We want our classic, awesome, well-made Nintendo titles, but we can play with our, siblings across the U.S. or our friends in, Japan or, anywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to do online multiplayer a little bit better. But they'll get it on the next console. This console was proven that they could become financially stable and reasonable again. The next console is going to blow it out of the water. Or the next iteration of the Switch. Switch 2.0 is going to be great.
Let me throw a thought experiment at you.
Cool.
And then we'll get into the show because we have a lot of shit to get
It's going to be like 14 hours at this point.
I know. We have a lot of shit to get through. But I want to ask because I've thought of this before. They release a new console. They release Breath of the Wild 2. It's probably not going to be a console to the point where you can't play it on the original Switch. But I think they are working on some sort of new iteration.
Yeah.
Regardless, they release one of these games that is massive. Zelda, I think, would be the most enticing for PlayStation and Xbox fans. Mario, too. Mario would be just as enticing. Say they take one of those two franchises, because those are by far their like flagship franchises. They've already released it. They've already made 10 million sales. What do you think about them releasing it on a different console? Like, I want to see Breath of the Wild on the greatest hardware.
Yeah.
Because that game deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think the potential downside would be?
Okay. The only downside I see, obviously, you make a lot of progress in the game. The new iteration comes out. It's not transferable. It's not compatible. Or, just generally speaking, you've put a lot of thought and soul and love into your first system. You got the game, and then it comes out a newer, better version that you have to, reconsider why you got the first version in the first place. That's the only really downside I can think of. But, upside, you do something like Breath of the Wild 2, you release a new console that has better online multiplayer, and you introduce a multiplayer aspect to that game. Totally into it.
Well, and on two consoles that might not have owned the Switch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might get another 5 million sales just from that alone if you did PC, Xbox, and PlayStation.
Oh, you're saying you're releasing on a different console?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Oh, I misunderstood the question entirely.
I'm saying, so they release it on their original console, and then a year or two later, they make a remaster suited, like made for PlayStation, Xbox, and they might even have like a side developer who makes those games.
That's a wild idea.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, what would the downside be? It's one game, it's one off, it's like an experiment, and you would be hitting this whole audience of people who might not have your Zelda game because they don't have a Nintendo console.
Well, but then the really obvious downside there is you're no longer encouraging people to buy your hardware, just your software.
But this game is already just a Switch game. You've already sold 10 million of them. You're not using this particular game to sell your console.
Yeah, but I'm going to say, for me, I didn't buy a Switch immediately. I waited, but eventually I bought one because all these titles are exclusive. There's a treasure trove of games I love that I know I can only get through Nintendo. So I'm going to invest in Nintendo hardware to get it. That's the thing. I think people are willing to invest in Nintendo. And in a lot of ways, Xbox and PlayStation are competing with each other, but Nintendo's sitting on the sidelines doing its own thing, Everyone has a Switch and a different console. You know what I mean? Or, you choose your PlayStation, you choose your Xbox, because those are pretty much the same thing at the end of the day. But your Switch is the one that you have on the side because it's the cool classic games that you love.
What if they released Breath of the Wild on PC, Xbox, I guess the new Xbox X now, and PlayStation 5? This is the problem. You couldn't do like a total remaster. It'd have to look the same. And then they only release Breath of the Wild 2 on the Switch. That's not even what my thought experiment is. I want to see Zelda on the highest fidelity machine is what I want.
I'll tell you right now that I don't think that would ever happen. I think the highest fidelity machine you're going to get is the Switch 2, whatever it is, which will probably be like the last generation, if we're going to be honest here.
It's going to be PlayStation 4.
It's going to be PlayStation 4.5 quality graphics. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. Because Nintendo knows they don't have to worry about graphics and hardware capabilities. Their games speak for themselves and the gameplay merit alone. But I don't know. I would actually be really interested to see them do something really crazy. Like, not release it on a different console, but really fucking push the consoles to the limits. Technologically speaking, again.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just curious as a gamer what type of sales they would get on a single game on all consoles versus just their own. Because they already sell, like, their attachment rate on a game per console is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, Animal Crossing, something like 50% of every Switch owner, maybe it wasn't quite that high, but it was a very high attachment rate of people who owned a Switch then bought Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Like way higher than any game on the PlayStation or Xbox.
Yeah.
Way higher.
Well, because I think like I was saying, Nintendo, you're drawn because of its titles. With the other ones, you're drawn because of the hardware, you know? And so you have a various amount of like outlets for the kind of games you like. Case in point, like, you know, a PlayStation owner might just buy his PlayStation 4 or 5, whatever, for like one of the Assassin's Creed games, right? You can get that on Xbox too, and now you can get some of them on even the fucking Nintendo. But what I'm saying is, like, Nintendo, the reason why you get a Switch is to play Zelda, is to play Mario. So for me, I don't know. It's like I don't really care too much to see Mario in all of his greatest glory. And seeing a Zelda game high fidelity would be fucking awesome, but I don't know. It almost just doesn't even, it almost doesn't compute. You know what I mean?
I know, but I mean, look at me. The only Nintendo console I've bought, which I literally was just thinking through this, and it blows my fucking mind. The only Nintendo console I've bought since 2006, when I bought a Wii, is a used Nintendo DS3, 3DS.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I value PlayStation more. I mean, they just have a better system on the whole, and that's like all I've really needed for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But man, I would love to see a Zelda game on there. I'd love to play those games. I would have bought that.
Yeah, I don't think business-wise it would make sense for them to do that. But at the same time, Nintendo has been experimenting with such things because their widely accepted release of Pokemon Go on the mobile platform.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, they missed out on a lot of money because they sort of gave this developer free reign. It didn't really have a lot of restrictions with how things boiled down and what they got out of it.
Yeah.
So, and Nintendo realizes that now, like, some of our, series that we do very well on our systems can also be put onto other things. Case in point, Mario Run was an answer to how well Pokemon Go did on the mobile platform. And that game didn't do nearly quite as well, but it was popular. And I think it does actually open up some possibility of Nintendo saying, you know what, maybe we can play around a little bit. But I don't think they'll ever switch into doing things for other consoles because they've successfully won the console wars with Sega in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they've successfully kept from going under during the 2000s with the release of the Switch after the Wii U did so poorly. They're high and mighty, and they laughed Microsoft off the stage whenever
I've read that article recently.
when they were asking to be bought out.
It's going around.
Or to buy Nintendo. What I'm saying is, like, they know their worth, and they won't tarnish their record with releasing on a third-party system unless it's something specific for that system. Case in point, they might do a Mario Run or something like that for any system, But they never release a mainline title, I don't think, on anything else.
I don't think so either. It's a pipe dream. Anyway, I just took us off on like a 10-minute tangent.
It's a worthwhile tangent.
I just think it's very interesting. And I know everybody who is a gamer has wondered these things. And I don't know, I think about it all the time. But I think that's also what makes Nintendo so magical is that they don't give a shit about how great the game looks in. They want the art to be good. They don't care necessarily that it's the highest pixel count, And they want the gameplay to be the most fun, unique game they can make. Anyway, sorry that I'm not sorry.
Don't be sorry, John.
I hope you enjoyed that wild discussion. So anyway, let's get back into some of the fun facts specific to the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time.
Cool. I think the only thing I didn't cover was the release. Japan, I like how this was a staggered release. I wanted to point that out.
Sure.
In Japan, June 2011, it was released on the 16th. In Europe, it was on the 17th. In North America, on the 19th. And Australia on the 30th.
Yeah. All
June 2011. I just like that. I like the release staggering like that, but it's all so tight-knit and close together. You're just rewarding fans of, in certain areas, I think, that I like this game even more. So, the Aussies can wait a couple days.
Yeah. I think next time we have a massive game like this that releases, I'm gonna go to the country that gets it first. I'm gonna stay up all night and day and play it, and then I'm gonna Reddit all the spoilers to the people in the other countries, just to be that guy.
That's the way to do it, man.
So I can feel something.
Yeah, you can start a new thing. It'll be an offshoot of MediumRetro called Jono Spoils.
Yeah. No. I'll do this secretly on the internet, like a total butthole.
It'll be called Butthole Spoils.
Butthole Spoils. I will never do that, Micah. Don't worry. I hate when people do that.
Jono hates spoilers, as it turns out, guys.
I do. I dare you to spoil something for me.
Don't actually take that seriously. Don't spoil things. You mischievous assholes out there.
Yeah, don't do it. I hate it. We all hate it. Now, somehow I made it through like a month and a half or 2 months without getting any major Mandalorian spoilers.
I also cannot believe that because literally like 5 minutes after I watched the final, everything was online about, all the big reveals in that
avoiding
series.
I was avoiding it.
I'm proud of you.
Yes. Fun facts specific to the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time. The Happy Mask shop was updated to include masks from Majora's Mask to be placed in the background.
Love that.
Pretty cool. The developers left some bugs in the game when they were remastering it. Some of the bugs that were more memorable, so that fans would grin, is what they said. If you read their quote, that they would grin remembering some of the silly issues that they had in the original game. And then during the marketing for the game, this is by far my favorite fun fact, and there wasn't a whole lot of fun facts that I found specific to the 3DS. This is my favorite one. During marketing for the game, the late and great Robin Williams appeared in a commercial with his daughter promoting the game, and this is because his daughter is named Zelda, and he named her after The Legend of Zelda.
I love that little tidbit. It makes you like and miss Robin Williams even more.
Man, I do miss Robin Williams.
Yeah, me too. Moving on from the side effect RIP. Gameplay, a couple changes they made in the 3DS version. Touchscreen controls made navigating menus much easier. I definitely really liked this in this playthrough. It certainly made it easier to switch between weapons, change out your gear. Loved it. And, go through the maps is way easier when you can just touch things.
Yeah, the touchscreen controls are great.
Reach out and touch. The 3D effect changes how you see the game. It does actually kind of open up things, makes certain puzzles and jumping things a little bit easier. It's easier to gauge distance. But yeah, small differences, but, big changes in the gameplay. And two items we discussed in today's episode, the iron boots and the hover boots, were moved from gear to items. This is actually something I had totally forgotten about. I'm glad you pointed it out. This made equipping them on and off much easier. Oh, yeah. And you did have to switch out between them a couple times.
Oh, yeah. So, in the 64 version, you'd have to hit start, go to the gear menu, equip your regular boots instead of your iron boots, and vice versa, back and forth. In this one, it's literally just an item, so it's like 2 button clicks, and you're not wearing them anymore. Mm-hmm. Or 1 button click, because it's a single button. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. Really does make it a lot easier.
Totally.
Yeah. So characters. Now, we discussed a whole bunch of characters last time, including Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, Navi, Saria, Impa, Darunia, Princess Ruto, and then a couple others along the way. I would strongly suggest you listen to the first episode, part 1, beforehand. So those are all of the characters that we discussed in the last episode, and we have some new ones. Only a couple that I'm going to highlight here because they are key characters, because many of the characters that we highlighted last time are going to carry over into Adult Link's saga. But we have Rauru, who is basically like the Sage of Time. Mm-hmm. He is the first sage that you talk to when you become an adult. He's the one who kind of tells you what you need to do, that you need to find all these sages in order to battle Ganondorf.
Yeah.
So Rauru apparently is an interesting character that we've met before. Micah, why don't you tell us about Rauru?
So, interesting development. I never knew this. I don't know why. It makes so much sense now that I'm thinking about it. Rauru is also known as Kapora Gibora when he's in his owl form. Apparently, the owl that you meet throughout the game is also the physical embodiment on the regular plane of existence of this spiritual dude. And it makes sense when you look at pictures next to the, back to back next to each other.
For sure, but neither of us knew this.
Yeah, I don't know if was it ever explained. I don't know.
Yeah, are there hints in there? Like, I just played this game and I did not know that, but I could have just missed like a single line that might have explained that.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, anyway, Rauru is the Owlu.
Rauru, Alru.
Rauru. And what was his name? What was the owl's name?
Let me try to say this again. Kapora Gibora.
Kapora Gibora is Rauru the Owlu, right?
Yes, as it turns out.
So, we learned something today.
Damn, I've loved and played this game so much over the years, and I did not know that. That's blowing my mind.
Well, that's how you know it's a good game, man. We're constantly learning new things and discovering new things about it. So then the last character I want to highlight is Nabooru. She is one of the Gerudos that you meet. The one major area of the game we did not visit as a childhood form of Link.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite, maybe Zelda tune, is the Gerudo Valley tune that we'll talk about a little bit later on.
It's a cool one.
it's just great. It's just great. And if you look online, like the guitar versions of it are amazing. But she is a new character that we'll talk about. Now, all of these characters will make reappearances. All of the ones that I just named. Specifically, we have Saria, or Soraya as Mike calls her, Impa, Darunia, Princess Rudo, Rauru, and Naburu, who are all going to be very central into what we're looking for here.
Mm-hmm.
Rauru tasks us with finding the 5 sages, because once all 6 sages are together, they can basically help you defeat Ganondorf, who has acquired mighty, mighty power. And so that is what we're tasked to do. So we left last episode off. Well, I guess let's recap, and then we'll kind of get into where we're at. So, Micah, why don't you kind of recap what we talked about last time very quickly, and then where we left off.
Cool. Link wakes up one day fairyless, only to find a fairy leading him to the Deku Tree. He inadvertently cures and kills the Deku Tree by lifting the curse. Everyone blames him. He leaves. He goes and he helps some Gorons out. They love him. One calls him brother. He leaves the Gorons. He goes over to the Zora. He kicks some butt. He saves the princess. He's accidentally engaged now. He has all 3 of the spiritual stones. He goes to the Temple of Time. After he's already met Zelda, the princess. This time, though, he tries to go talk to her, but she comes out running away from Ganon, who decides to shoot Link with some energy and run off. As it turns out, now Ganon knows Link is an enemy because Link is dumb instead of being, smart. But yeah, Link, in an effort to try to save things and fix all this garbage, goes to the Temple of Time, puts the 3 stones on the pedestal, unlocks the seal, goes, pulls out the Master Sword, inadvertently allowing Ganon to enter into the spiritual realm, and I do believe that is where we left off.
Yes, sir, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Micah, I think it's time we get into the walkthrough, but before we do that, somehow we said this was going to be a quicker entry into the walkthrough.
And hell no, it isn't.
We are 5 minutes longer entering into the walkthrough this time than we were last episode because it was 45 minutes. So, hey, Micah, let's do a little happy hour.
Well, hell yeah, let's do it.
Now, who went first last time? I think you did, so I'm going to go first this time.
Cool.
Not as fun as The Mandalorian, which is what I talked about last time. Season 2 was fantastic. This is a little, you talked about food in this episode. I'm going to talk about food. I have a new tasty treat that I've been making, and it's been giving me lots of energy, somewhat. It's very healthy. It is steel cut oats. Okay, it doesn't sound exciting, but you mix in a giant lump of pumpkin. If you get canned pumpkin, and it's like a superfood, and then you put walnuts in there, and it's like a bowl of superfood. And it really has been making me feel better because I've been under the weather for a little bit, and I've been eating it the last couple of days, and I feel like it's been helping my my health.
Hell yeah!
And honestly, it's super tasty too.
That's awesome. Let me ask you, how many hearts does it heal?
Now, I would say it's like Lon Lon milk.
Yeah,
it's not a fairy. It's like Lon Lon milk.
Cool.
4 hearts.
Respectable.
Yeah, and I think adult Link is still only like 18 years old or 19, maybe 17.
He's pretty young.
He's pretty young.
Yeah.
And so I probably have more hearts than him at this point. They just fade quicker.
A hit takes a whole heart instead of a quarter at this point.
Yeah, so I gotta eat that healthy food at a clip. He can go days without Lon Lon milk. I'm trying to eat these oats and pumpkin every day.
Well, very nice. That actually does sound pretty good. I've been looking for new things to try, so perhaps I'll try that out myself.
I'm telling you, it's super tasty. If you gotta like pumpkin, though, because pumpkin has a very distinct flavor.
I love pumpkin, personally.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hell yeah. My little happy hour discussion lately, I've been watching through a lot of TV on the side, It's been a little bit of a boring time because I'm in between semesters. I'm about to jump right back in, though. It's going to be crazy. I'm not sure what to expect this time around because I'm taking classes in 2 different schools, so we'll see what happens. But all that being said, I've been watching back through Death Note.
I've always wanted to watch that.
Dude, it's so good. But this is the thing about Death Note. No spoilers. There is a point in the series in which you are supposed to stop watching and pretend that is the end of the series. And this time around, I decided to keep watching. It's not as good.
Wait, so they made episodes after that you're not supposed to watch?
No. according to fans,
Oh,
the better ending is stopping there and assuming it ended
I see.
rather than watching the actual ending.
And so
You know what
you've
I'm
been
saying?
disappointed continuing on.
Yeah, I continued on, and I kind of wish I hadn't now.
Hmm.
Because, as is the case,
What episode should you stop watching?
to be totally honest, I do not know which one it is off the top of my head. But look online, there are a lot of people who say, this is the episode to stop on. And no spoilers, it actually is a pretty good ending to the show.
Hmm.
So, I think that's one of the things with shows that are successful. You keep going on and on and on. It may have been the original story. I don't really know if it's based on a comic book, I would assume. But at the same time, I don't know. There's just an ending that would have been perfect, and they decided to keep going and do a different ending, and I kind of wish they just stopped.
Is the show still going?
No, it stopped a long time ago.
Hmm.
But it's funny because I watched through this in college and really liked it. No spoilers whatsoever because this is literally in the first episode, and if you've literally seen a trailer, it explains all this. But the idea behind Death Note is a person comes into possession of a notebook that whenever you write a person's name in, they die.
Yeah.
And it's what happens after that point. That is interesting and very cool. So no spoilers, worth watching. If you like thriller, suspense, if you've ever asked yourself, if I could kill people, who would I kill? It's worth watching.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to watch that show.
It's on Netflix.
All right. We got to do an Akira episode.
I would love to do an Akira episode. I love that movie.
I know we've talked about it. I haven't seen it, so we have to do one.
But you've never seen it?
No, we've talked about this.
I know we've talked about this, but I totally forgot this, Jono.
We already know what we're doing on our next Medium Retro special.
This would be after that.
Right after that, we're going to do Akira.
Dude, I've literally watched it like 4 times recently, and I'll watch it another time. I fucking love it.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Okay, Micah, let's get into the walkthrough of the meatier, more robust, more adult section of this game, because you are an adult. You are 7 years older.
Yes. So as we said previously, you pull that sword out. Ganondorf says, "Hey, thanks, bud," and he just pushes past you. Then you start to talk to the sage who fills you in on what's going on, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, look at your body. You're 7 years older." As it turns out, when you pulled the Sword of Destiny out, you were too young to wield it, and so the sword trapped you in the spiritual realm for 7 years, aging you until you could properly take up the sword. But hey, guess what? Everything's gone to shit in 7 years. Do your thing, Link.
This was a mind-blowing moment the first time I played the game. What about you?
I didn't know you were going to turn into a dad.
Yeah.
You were a child, and now you're like a fucking big beefy dude.
Beefy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
You're not a little frail little baby Link anymore. You're a 17-year-old Link man with muscles.
Yeah, instead of rolling, you did your roll, like the ha, ha. You're huh, huh.
It's a much more guttural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do a much better Link growl.
Well, I've been rolling around as Link in Zelda for years now,
So when you got to that point in the game in your home videos, did you change the pitch?
No.
No? You stuck with the kid one?
No, I mean, I my home videos, I wasn't making the sounds.
Okay.
My home videos, I was recording the video game, trying to make movies out of the video game.
I thought you were saying you were annoying last episode because you were continually doing the noise yourself. Oh, I totally missed that.
Recording Link go ha 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 he ha like every 5 seconds is hilarious. And then you realize how annoying traversing Hyrule Field that way is.
I totally heard that story totally wrong. I don't know. It's probably because I was one beer deep at that point.
Well, hey, a couple more. Hell yeah.
Listen, you take a week off of drinking and then you have a few beers. All of a sudden you're making up stories about your friend rolling around at home videos, making crazy noises.
I used to make home videos like that, though. My friend got this cool software for his computer where he could do that, and he got a little handheld camera that had like 2 hours of battery life, and we used to make terrible movies all the time. I wish that I still had them.
Yeah. See, I thought you were saying you were making videos of you being Link.
No, but that would
reenacting.
That would be way cooler. That would be way cooler.
I was very impressed, I gotta say. I felt a little insecure that I never did anything that cool as a child.
No.
Now we're okay again.
Okay, cool. Hey, cheers, Jono. There we go.
Cheers,
we got through that moment.
Cheers, my friend. Roasty. Okay, so let's move on then. We are an adult man. We talked to Rauru. He is one of the sages that we mentioned who is apparently the owl, who we learned this 20 years after we played the game.
Damn.
Very wild. And he explains, like you said, the 7 years and all that stuff. We know now that we are supposed to contact the other 5 sages, and they will give us a medallion, and that will allow us to conquer the evil Ganondorf.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Okay? So we are sent on a quest, and that's where we're at. Now, it's a crazy moment when we are adult Link, and we've been told that Ganondorf has been conquering the land of Hyrule for the last 7 years and turning it into an evil place. But we don't really fully understand that until we walk outside of the Temple of Light. So tell us about that.
So yeah, once again, we emphasized earlier that whenever you go to the city outside of the castle, it's beautiful, it's lovely, everyone's happy, dancing around, maybe watching cockfights. Who knows? It maybe. Just lovely people having a lovely time. Dogs running around, butterflies. It's beautiful. This time you walk out of the temple and everything is desolate, destroyed. Windows are boarded up. Houses look fucking dilapidated. And in the place of all the happy residents, we now have zombies.
They're zombies, man.
Yeah. Zombies just chilling. But yeah, in the place of all these happy villagers, we're left with these ugly fucking zombie dudes just chilling out. These re-deads just taking up space. And they like to scream at you as you try to walk by and grab you and hurt you. It's not a happy place anymore. You walk outside. The gate that used to close at night is now destroyed. And in the lake, preventing you from taking your horse into the town. I figured out that's why they did it.
Yeah.
I love little details like that. But yeah, this is not a happy place anymore. It used to be a fun town filled with life, and now it's only filled with death. And it's also very dark. It doesn't matter what time of day you go in there. Clouds cover the sun anytime you're in Hyrule.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's terrifying. And you see Death Mountain in the background, which now has this giant red ring around it, and it looks like an evil place. And
ominous.
I would say also the Re-Deads are very, very creepy.
They are.
There's only one enemy in this game that's creepier that we'll talk about. And that is a horrifying. Yes. Oh, man.
Yep.
Micah just mimicked it to me, but we will talk about it when we get to it.
Spoiler alert. This was traumatizing to us as children playing this.
What was that thing? We'll get to it. I can't wait to talk about some of the things in the adult section of this game because it's fantastic.
No, that wasn't even technically in the adult section, but we'll get to that.
You're right. Right. Okay.
But yeah, this game just goes to really drive home the fact that what once was a beautiful land full of prosperity and love and unity between the different people who called Hyrule home has now become a place of division and sadness and desolation and death.
Yes. Now, when you leave Hyrule Town and you cross the now broken drawbridge, the sky does turn blue and things are green.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly couldn't remember. It's been so long that I played this game that I was kind of worried, no joke, worried that when I left Hyrule Town that everything was just going to be this gloomy adult shithole for the rest of the game. And I was super happy to see that, no, Hyrule Town's awful, but things are still green.
Ganon's reach has only extended so far in 7
Yeah.
years. But it's actually worth noting, too. I think we forgot to cover this. Sheik actually shows up in the temple, right?
Oh, yes.
So before we left, Sheik actually does pop up, and she tells you essentially... Sheik pops up, and they tell you essentially that everything's fucked, and that you need to save your friend Saria, and that the only way to do so is you need to go to Kokoriko Village, to talk to the gravedigger Dampy there, who has an item that you need for rescuing your friend. And then they pop away. And you don't really know who Sheik is at this point. You don't really know what their biz is, if they're good or if they're bad. But they seem to know a lot, and they seem to be helping you. So, why not trust them? Why not follow what they're saying? And off you go. And that's when you leave, and that's when you see all that shit, and that's when you get outside. And then the sky turns blue, and you're like, oh, thank God. I thought this was going to be way more depressing.
Yes, relief. A little bit of relief, because that would be a bleak world to play for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you immediately run over to Kakariko Village, and that is where you see all of the townspeople from Hyrule Castletown. They've all moved over to Kakariko Village, because who the frick would live in Hyrule Castletown? It literally looks like a horror house now. Horror house now. You know, bad place to be, not fun to live.
It's only really a whorehouse for necrophiliacs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people would want to be there. Most people wouldn't want to be there.
Most people, any reasonable person.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kakariko Village actually seems a lot nicer. It's, it's about the same as previously. Some of the buildings that were being built 7 years ago are finished now.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. So in Kakariko Village, when you're a child, there is a foreman, and he's trying to build this structure, and he has the most prancy,
bumbling
construction workers, and they literally are frolicking around town. That's all they do.
They're like, oh, I'm so busy, and he's like, oh my god, they're not doing anything, and they literally aren't doing anything. They're literally running in circles.
Yeah, and then his son. You meet his son at night, and he's just like the creepiest, saddest.
My parents suck. Everyone here sucks. You probably suck too.
That's
essentially what he says.
Leave me alone. I'm just bald. He looks like he's 90, but he's got to be like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Kakariko Village has some weird things, but the prancing construction workers are like my favorite.
Yeah, I love them. They look like they're having a great time.
Yeah, and they will show up again, which is funny.
They will.
Too.
I had totally forgotten that they actually make a reappearance, so I was happy.
I did too.
Happens.
I totally forgot that, so that was funny to see. So yeah, man, we get into Kakariko Village. We go to Dampé's graveyard, and yeah, tell us about that, man, because I had completely forgotten this existed in the game.
I remember this fondly, so I was very excited to go back to it. So Dampé, you actually meet him and when you're a child, and he is like a friendly old gravekeeper. You can pay him money, he'll actually dig up like different spots in the graveyard, maybe giving you some cool treasure. And he's just chill with you being there, he doesn't really mind. He's just keeping the graves and doing his job. He is a weird, creepy looking dude, but he's nice. He's friendly.
Super nice.
Yeah. So as an adult, when you go to the graveyard, he's actually passed away, sadly. But you go to Dampé's grave. And when you pull back the grave, an entrance appears. You drop down in there, and Dampé's ghost talks to you. So he's sitting down there, and he's like, hey, why don't we have a little race? Let's see who's faster. He's
kind of more fun.
Yeah. I think Dampé's like, you know what? I had to be serious when I was alive, but I'm dead now, so let's just have a great time. Yeah. So he's like, hey, race me. So you do. And Dampé races you around this weird inner grave area. It's kind of creepy, but also like he's just having a good time. And if you can keep up with him, it's a hard one. There's a lot of obstacles in the way. A couple different times he's floating past things that you have to climb over and jump over. And some things you have to avoid from getting hurt and getting slowed down.
He throws fireballs at you.
Yeah, he also throws fireballs at you. That's true. But if you're able to dodge all this stuff and catch up to Dampé at the end, he is surprised by your speed, says you did a good job, and he gives you one of his greatest treasures, which, as it turns out, is one of my favorite items in any Zelda game, the hook shot.
The hook shot.
Yes.
And that's what surprised me so much, is I remember the hook shot fondly. I just had no memory of
how you got it.
Yeah. Like this was like literally I put in my notes, this could have been something somebody described to me and I would have been like, no, that's not in the game.
Yeah, I just remember playing this so many times as a kid because it took me a lot of times to be able to catch him when I was younger.
Yeah.
This time I did it no problem, but originally a little tough.
Yeah. Now I looked it up after the fact, and I didn't even do it because I didn't even want to fuck with it. But if you catch up to him within 1 minute or less, you actually get a heart piece.
Oh.
Yeah, because I beat it, got the hook shot, did it again to see if anything would happen, and I did it in 1 minute and 3 seconds. I got some rupees, and I was like, is there anything better than that? And I looked it up, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that again. I don't care about the heart piece.
I knew it was a heart piece because I'd done that previously, but I was just like, fuck it, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's how I played this game a lot. If there was something that I knew I could do, and I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to spend the time to do it, I would just look it up and see what would happen.
Because, I mean, shit, man, this game is fun to fully complete, but if you do that, it's going to take like 40 hours.
Exactly. Like for the most, I mean, I spent a shitload of time. I honestly spent a lot of time just wandering around and doing stuff too.
Yeah.
Just because it had been so long and it was so much fun. But things that were like super obvious that you might get a prize for doing, I didn't always put the time in.
Yeah. I feel the same.
Like
I just looked up and looked at the time for the first time in a long time, and I was right at 69.
Oh yeah.
I just want to point that out. Yeah, I'll probably have to edit that out because once we do editing, it won't be at 69 at this point. But
well, you can leave it in there and just keep that explanation in.
Nod.
Yeah.
Yes, person. But yeah, no, I think that was like a weird part of the game for sure. And I think running around and doing crazy stuff, going to the great lengths to get all the little bits, it's fine. But if you've already done that whole entire chasing Dampy down, you don't want to do it again. Not right at the bat, not immediately. But if you get lost and you're bored and you want to do something while you figure out what you're supposed to be doing, hell yeah. That's why as a kid I did all this shit,
Yeah. For sure, but this is also why we probably shouldn't have talked about so many different topics and dove into the game, because there is so much in the adult section of this game. Like that was just a thing you had to do it. But it's not in a dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally separate thing, and we have 5 dungeons plus Ganon's castle to go through in this thing. So it's pretty wild. It's just pretty wild how dense this game is.
True. And it's
especially
crazy
back then.
It's crazy too. This playthrough, I literally only looked at one thing the entire playthrough. Only looked at one thing. I did everything by memory, or I figured it out.
I did not. I looked up a whole bunch of shit.
And that's fine. But the thing is, like, I still think I beat this game in a really reasonable amount of time, considering how dense it was and how much I was doing. Because this game is dense, very dense.
It is, and I gotta say, the dungeons weren't nearly as hard as I remembered them. I actually tore through most of the dungeons. I didn't get stuck very often at all.
Yeah.
There was the occasional key, like we'll talk about in the Forest Temple, a couple things that I got stuck on, but nothing was that hard. I just remembered it being a lot harder as a kid. Yeah. And obviously I'm an adult man now. So yes, things will be easier.
I think the really good thing about this game is that it does sort of like lead in. Whenever you have a puzzle you couldn't solve or you can't figure out, usually you come back to it when you have something you don't have.
Yeah.
So usually it's like just figure out how to tell if that's the case or if you're just overlooking something, But yeah, once you get the hookshot from Dampy, you go straight out to the forest to try to go find Soraya.
Yeah.
And when you get into the little Deku town, it's a different place.
Now, I will say on my way to the Forest Temple, I did stop by Lon Lon Ranch.
Ah.
And I did get Epona.
So I went to Lon Lon Ranch at this point, but then I forgot that I'd actually never gone to Lon Lon Ranch as a child, so no one knew me. I didn't know Epona's song. Didn't get Epona. I decided to come back later when I knew I was going to have to become a kid again.
Yeah.
For the Spirit Temple, I waited all the way towards the end of the game to get Epona.
I just knew it would save me a lot of time. So yeah, you basically... did I call it Epona too? I think you've worn off on me.
Epona.
What do you...
I call it Epona.
Yes, I always said Epona, and I just said Epona because of you telling me that last episode.
Once upon a dream.
Yeah, once upon a dream. So when you're a kid, I did get Epona's song, and it's like the easiest song to play in the game. It's the only one that's like fully sequential twice in a row.
It used to be up, left, right on the C axis, and now it's changed.
Yeah, it was like right, left. No, right, up, left. But yeah, no, so I got that song. I went to the ranch. Fun little side quest, I'll just tell you really quick, because getting Epona is great because you have a horse, and she's way, way, way faster than you just rolling around. So you go to the ranch. You understand that Ingo, who was like the worker there, kind of like the second hand, took over because Ganon gave him power. And so he's a little evil, and he took advantage of Ganon wanting him to be in charge. You ride Epona because you can pay him like 10 or 20 rubies to ride some horses around. You play the song. Epona will come up to you. You jump on her. And then if you talk to Ingo while you're riding Epona, he'll challenge you to a race. He cheats. He leaves about a second before you. You beat him once. He whines a little bit. You beat him again. And then he's like, fine, I'll give you Epona because he had bet you the horse after he lost the first time.
Yeah.
Locks you in. And then you just basically jump over the fence, and you now own beautiful Epona.
Which is funny because I remember as a kid I could not figure out how to get out of that shit. I was like, okay, I have the horse. I'm here now. What do I do? And literally, I think I accidentally jumped over the fence. I think that's what happened.
I remembered. I don't remember what I did as a kid, but
Yeah, as an adult, I remembered how to do it because it's an iconic scene in that game. But
Yeah.
I remember that took me so long to figure out as a kid. But also, beating him seems so much harder when you're a kid, too. It was so easy this time.
It's so easy, yeah. So, yeah, that's Epona. That's a little side quest. Everybody who plays Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time loves that little side quest.
What's cooler than getting a horse that makes traversing the field that much easier?
Yeah. Well, cool beans, man. We have the Forest Temple now.
And we do. So, Sheik told you got to go save your friend, but first you got to get the hook shot. You get the hook shot. And there's only one person in that village that's still your friend after you murdered the great Deku Tree. She knows it wasn't you, though. It's Soraya or Saria, and she is, a sweet angel of a person who needs rescue. Now, you don't really know how to get to her. You don't really know where you got to go. But you do know that where she was previously was in the Lost Woods. You just go to find her.
Mm-hmm.
Where you previously met her, where you previously saw her. You know her. She likes to hang out there. So anyway, you're going through the same thing, as last time you were in the Lost Woods. You're trying to find your way, not get lost. You're sort of going through those areas, and they open up, new areas for you. That didn't make any sense. You go through these different little, tunnels, and, as you get closer and closer, if it's the right direction, it'll light up. If you go to the wrong direction, you'll just walk through and start over.
Mm-hmm.
The Lost Woods like to make you lost.
Yeah, and the music will be a little bit louder, I think, if you're going the right way. Wait, I don't even think we talked about the Lost Woods.
Yeah, we actually totally skipped over that the last time.
We did.
But the weird thing is, this time when you're going through, for me, the music didn't change at all because I'd already been through the Lost Woods as a child. So this time I just had to get close and try to figure out where I was going.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think it's the child when you...
It's weird because you'd think the music would do that again, but it doesn't. But that being said, you get pretty close, and then that same little bully who kept you from seeing the Deku Tree at the beginning of the game is like, I wasn't going to let anyone, through here because Soraya told me to hold everyone off. She's doing her thing. Get out of here, get lost. And the way that you actually convince him that Soraya is playing her song.
Yeah.
He doesn't recognize that you're the same Link he knew as a child. And so he's like, oh, you must know her. She tells everyone who she likes how to play that song. So, fine, you can go. You go through. And actually, this is the only time in the game. This is actually an interesting fact. This is the only time in the game, and the only time in this whole entire game that you face moblins, who are a recurring enemy in almost every single Zelda game. Mm-hmm. But this is the only time you actually see them and face them and fight them in this game.
Yeah.
So they are spear wielding and very tall in this version, and they are sort of patrolling this maze area in front of the forest thing, the temple in front of the forest temple. And you have to be smart, look around the corner, and hit them when they're not looking. They only take one hit, and they're gone.
One hit and they're gone, but they also take 1 heart per hit on you.
Yeah.
And at this point, you don't have that many hearts.
They're pretty intense, and you got to be careful taking them out. Once you face all of them, you face sort of this big, a club-wielding moblin who sort of sends a shockwave as he hits the ground. I totally forgot how to do this. This is actually the one thing I looked up.
This is the only thing you looked up the whole game.
Actually, no. I looked up a second thing. I've just remembered, but this is one of the only things I had to look up. Because I forgot, you zigzag.
Yeah.
It's a very tight corridor, but you can still go around.
You can zigzag. Mm. Now, just in terms of looking things up, I could have beat this game without looking anything up. But I was just constantly looking things up is this worth my time in terms of side quests and shit?
Yeah.
So I looked up a whole bunch of stuff. When it came to the dungeons, though, I would try to do everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. For side quests, you don't really have to worry too much about it.
I would just wonder, I couldn't remember, what happens if I do this? Do I want to spend the next hour exploring this? I also, we'll talk about the Begoron sword. I looked up how to do that because I just knew I would not remember how to do it, where everybody was at.
I'm going to be 110% honest with you. This playthrough, I did not get it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
It does. It takes a lot of work.
I'm super, super stoked to get the Begoron sword.
Okay, I'll probably actually go back and get it anyway, because I do plan to mop up some of the side quests now that I've actually finished this for the episode. Because, I want to live through, I want to relive through all that nostalgia.
Yeah.
110%. But yeah, shall we continue?
Yeah. I'll talk about the Begoron sword when I get it.
Hell yeah. Sheik shows up after you defeat these moblins and get to the front of the temple. Reiterates that you need to save Soraya, that she is the guardian Or maybe she doesn't tell you that she's the guardian.
No, she doesn't explicitly say it, but it's hinted at pretty strongly.
Yeah. She tells you got to save your friend. She teaches you the song of this temple. Which, do you have all the songs written down, like what they're called? I always forget.
I have most of them. Now, I don't have this one written down, but as I started getting them throughout the game, I did start writing them down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, essentially, every time you get to a new temple, and again, we're using temple and dungeon a little interchangeably, but they specifically refer to all of these dungeons as Adult Link as temples. But yeah, every single dungeon you get to, you basically run into Sheik, and she will teach you a song that will allow you to teleport directly to the dungeon.
So it's weird, but I actually remember the name of this one. It's the Minuet of Forests.
Oh,
Or Minuet of Forest.
Minuet of Forest.
Yeah. But, yeah, I like this one a lot. This tune. It's a cool little tune.
Yeah. I gotta say, the temple-related songs are not my favorite ones, though.
Yeah. I like the Water Temple one. I like this one. And I really like the Temple of Times one. Because it's like upbeat. It almost sounds like a pop song.
Yeah. I can see that. But, I mean, I like them all, but none of them are, to me, as good as, like, Zelda's Lullaby or Lon Lon Ranch.
Yeah.
Or Song of Storms even, which is like the most useless song probably you learn in the whole game.
It serves one purpose.
Yeah. But I mean, for the most part, it's probably the most useless song in the game.
Actually, it serves one purpose, but there are some cool things you can do on the side. If you want to get some hearts or fairies in certain areas. I don't know if you did this, but in the desert there's an oasis with an empty lake, and if you play it, it fills up the lake, and then it becomes a fairy lake.
Well, I didn't, and now I feel bad.
Well, it's
about myself.
I love to do that to you, Jono. But yeah, no, the Minuet of Forest, he teaches it to you. And then, because you now have the hookshot, you can actually get into the front of this temple, which requires you to, grapple up to the top of some trees and get up there.
Yeah, basically the hookshot will stick to wood. So there's a lot of things you can hookshot into throughout the entire game. Like, you can't do it into stone walls and stuff. But yeah, so now we are entering the Forest Temple, first temple as an adult, first dungeon. Right off the bat, you fight a couple wolves. They're pretty tough. There's a couple trees and a vine wall. You know that you need to go to the top because there's a pretty obvious chest at the top, and that gives you a small key. Fun fact here, now that we are an adult, I feel like they're like, oh, we got to wait till you're adult Link until we introduce the age-old mechanic of finding keys, both small keys and boss keys, for our Zelda dungeons, because you don't collect a single key as a child until this point. Later on with some of the other dungeons when you go back in time, but before you transfer to an adult, there are no keys that you collect.
And that's really interesting and something I did not realize.
Yeah, think about it. Think about the three dungeons you are in. There are 0 locked doors and there's no boss keys.
I guess when you're a child, no door is locked to you.
Yeah.
That's a secondary meaning right there.
I just noticed that. I thought it was really funny because when I was playing through the game, I was actually thinking to myself, wow, there's like no keys. This is such a major part of Zelda games, the old Zelda games, where you always have keys to unlock things. And I had remembered that there were keys in the game. I was like, all right, maybe I was wrong. And then when I got this key, I was like, okay, I guess there's temples as an adult Link that you actually run into that. So anyway.
That's a really interesting sidebar right there. Didn't even realize that.
There's a little quirk I noticed.
Man. But I gotta say though, okay, this started out with the bogoblins or moblins or whatever they're called, and that was like fun, a little throwback to some old Zelda shit. You get in there into the Forest Temple, and like you were saying, you have to collect some stuff on the top of trees if you're smart, and you don't have to backtrack later, which is what I always did as a kid. But I really think that this aesthetic on the inside of this temple or dungeon, if you will, is fantastic. I really like it. It's almost like, imagine like what a high-end witch, what their house would look like in the forest. Stained glass windows and the doors, strange vines growing everywhere, creepy, magical lanterns. Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're living inside with so much growth like around you is very, very cool. And I also love the stained glass doors.
Totally. I think that's honestly like one of my favorite things in this whole entire game, aesthetically speaking, is the doors in this level.
Yeah. Where a witch would live is like a good way to put that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things about this level, immediately when you go inside, you see that there is a elevator that is I think it like sinks into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 4 torches which were lit, and then above them appear ghosts, and they all go into a different direction.
Yeah, and they're each a unique color, so you pretty obviously know you got to track them down.
You got to track down the ghosts and return them to the flames to get that elevator to come back to you. So, and that's actually the main mechanic. You have 4 different sort of areas you can go to, or 4 different directions rather, and it's sort of a big loop if you do it properly. And yeah. This temple, I think, like you said, it introduces keys now that you're an adult. Another really interesting thing, too, that I still cannot wrap my head around, regardless of how long it's been, is the twisting corridors.
Yeah.
It's weird.
They are weird. They they make you feel uncomfortable when you walk through them. Because it's almost like your brain can't comprehend what's going on.
So essentially, this is a long hallway, and there's a rug at the bottom, but then it starts to like twirl up over the walls. And as you're walking, your perspective is twisting so that you're walking on this carpet on the ground as if it were the ground, but you're also twisting the whole entire wall around. So that by the time you get through the door, you're now upside down or on the walls. It's just strange. It's weird. Yeah. And the thing about it is, as the level progresses, you're actually able to essentially switch this off so that now the hallways are straight. And whenever you go into these rooms, you're now walking on what used to be the wall or the ceiling. And this game is sort of, or this temple is sort of about solving these puzzles in the proper way to get everything, go into the right areas, unlock new areas, and open chests that are on the walls that you couldn't get to previously. This mechanic is weird and strange, and it's very mind-bendy, but very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. This is a very cool dungeon, and there's one section of the thing that threw me off. I think I mentioned it or alluded to it earlier that I didn't really get lost in dungeons too much. I found the dungeons to be pretty easy, pretty fun. Never really got hung up. There was one section in this that I got hung up on, and it's not because it was confusing. It's just like the way they designed it, it looked like you couldn't pass. So there's a giant wall with vines on it. Mm-hmm. And you have to climb up this wall, but there's skeletons on it.
Yeah.
And there's one that's too high up there. And like I remembered as a kid, this might have been why I didn't even try to do it at first. I remembered as a kid that this is the dungeon you get the bow and arrow. That's the big item you get. That's like the slingshot as the kid is the bow and arrow to the adult.
Yeah.
Same thing, first dungeon, you get the slingshot. First dungeon, you get the bow and arrow. And I knew you got that in this. So I assumed that I couldn't go up this wall until I got the bow and arrow because there's clearly a skeleton that's going to attack me. All you have to do, though, is go to the far right side and you can climb up this wall to proceed. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can progress without doing that.
It is a little bit of a throw off. I know exactly where you're talking about.
Yeah, and it drove me crazy. I was like, I kept going to this. I couldn't figure out where to go. And I kept looking at this wall. I'm like, oh, I can't go there. There's a skeleton. He's going to attack me. To me, that was a really strange design.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that it's one of those things where, like, it probably wasn't as weird because I think video games now are a little bit more visually descriptive of what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, that did seem impossible. But I think the way that I actually got past him was that I waited till his back was turned and crawled up the vines behind him and managed somehow to get through without getting hit.
If you just go to the far right side, it doesn't even matter. You can look at it. He's far enough away. I just think in my mind from earlier in the game to this section, I had assumed if there's a skeleton near you on the vines, you will not be able to pass. So
yep.
It is what it is. That threw me off a little bit. I found that kind of annoying from a design perspective, but I could also just be a big dum-dum. So
yeah. Well, I mean, no, you're not. Honestly, there were multiple times in this game in which I think that what they did was cool, but it's not the same as modern games. Modern games really, it's not that they spell it out for you, but it's like there's a consistent theme, you know?
Yeah.
If something is on a ceiling you can't shoot and also it's going to hurt you and knock you off, then obviously you can't pass. You need something to get past there. So, and in all honesty, I think this game is also set up sort of that dialogue between the player and the designers. It does sort of seem out of place that you'd be required to just walk past them like that.
Well, yeah, because you could never do that before, and in this one, that is what you were supposed to do. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't want to bitch too much about a relatively small thing in this game. Very small
Yeah,
thing.
but worth mentioning. I think one of the things I found really interesting about this, the mini bosses are actually the 4 ghosts that you fight. Essentially, you face off against each of them. They're all very easy, but you have to shoot once you get the arrows, you have to shoot the different paintings that they appear in a hallway, and then they'll pop out sort of so that you can actually fight them. And like every ghost, they sort of do the whole entire disappearing act where you can't really hit them, and you got to wait till they pop back up. They're not too difficult. Each of them only take a few minutes. It's more or less the consistency of solving the puzzles to get to them. That is the difficulty in this level.
For sure.
But yeah, once you get 3 of them, you pop back out to the center room. The 4th one appears. You take him down, and all 4 torches are lit, and you can actually finally go to the next section of the dungeon.
Yeah. Now, the only thing else I want to say before we get to the last part of the dungeon, because we're one puzzle away from the boss, is the 3rd ghost. You have to push up some blocks together to make a picture.
Oh, I
It's like
forgot
a
about that.
puzzle thing. Pretty cool little
Yeah,
puzzle, I thought.
I like that too, actually. Yeah, I like this. This is probably one of my favorite dungeons in the game, I think,
Yeah.
because it's a little mind bendy. It's really aesthetically interesting. Couple enemies worth mentioning. Obviously, you have your Skulltulas who pop down from the ceiling. Those dang hands that jump down on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Navi always tells you, "Hey, be careful of guys popping down from the ceiling. Like, look for the shadows."
Yeah, and you hear the...
But it doesn't make it any less scary whenever
and
you
they
hear
get like
that noise.
quieter. Yeah, they're awful. I hate those ones.
Me too. Those are always my least favorite as a kid.
I gotta say, the adult half of this game, there are a lot of creepy things.
Yeah, it definitely veers into some creepy shit. Because honestly, like as a kid, everything's a little bit more innocent. You know, there are definitely some scary things, but also like the world hasn't really been touched by evil like it has once Ganon gets his hands on it. You know, so evil incarnates into some pretty creepy dudes in this one.
Yeah, so tell us about our big bad boss, evil spirit from beyond, Phantom Ganon. Now I know there's like a little puzzle room. I guess if you want to talk about that, we can before we get into the boss.
What about the puzzle room? Do you think is worth mentioning? Because I literally don't have any notes.
Nah, there's nothing. It's like a turning puzzle. It's nothing crazy to mention. I think we should go ahead and talk about the boss.
Hell yeah. So Phantom Ganon was one of the ones that I always think about whenever I think about this game. You go into this room and there are several paintings on the wall, and you see this figure riding towards you on a horse in the paintings. And as he approaches, he gets very close. Then he actually pops out of the paintings and will attack you by jumping over you. And I think he like throws lightning on you. But this is interesting because I still find it very intriguing to watch this figure rise from the paintings. They do a very good job making it look believable.
Mm-hmm.
It also like it takes you a minute to figure it out. You know, as a kid, it took me a couple deaths before I figured out how to actually fight Phantom Ganon. But once you do, you sort of realize as he pops close to the paintings, as he starts to materialize, you can hit him with the fairy bow. And you do that a couple times. You get a couple good hits in. It doesn't take too hard, or it doesn't take too much to get him taken care of.
Yeah, no, and then when he pops out, after you do the first couple hits with the fairy bow, he then will float around and throw like a lightning ball at you.
Yeah.
And you kind of play, catch with him a little bit. You're throwing it back and forth, but you're swiping it at him, and then he hits back at you.
I forgot. This is actually foreshadowing.
Yes, very much foreshadowing. Very late in the game that we'll talk about later. No, this is a great boss. I found him so easy compared to what I remembered. But as a kid, he was so hard. He was just a piece of cake now.
Yeah, it really didn't take me long to take him out. And once again, that just goes to show, like, when you're an adult and you've played a lot of video games, shit just makes more sense now.
Yeah. I mean, we played the game too. It's kind of funny. I think my listing of like favorite dungeons and favorite bosses as a kid is very different than what they would have been now as an adult.
Yeah. I feel you there. I can understand that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the Forest Temple. Great stage, and then then we find out that the Forest Sage in every dungeon temple is going to end with a sage, and this is Saria. She's the Forest Sage.
It is. Now, one thing I wanted to point out that whenever you defeat Phantom Ganon, actual Ganon talks to you.
Oh, that is right.
And he's like, "Oh, you got more powerful. By the way, this is like a super weak henchman, and he sucks. So I'm gonna banish him to the realm in between realms." Is pretty much what he says. Is this Calamity Ganon before Calamity Ganon? Is this what got sealed away and turned into that shit?
Oh boy.
I thought about this so much. Like, what does he come back? You know, is he Calamity Ganon? Is he something that got sealed away and came back out?
See, the timelines
More
are
powerful.
so crazy in the Zelda universe that I don't even know.
Yeah, I've never played Phantom Hourglass. Maybe this is the Phantom Ganon in that game. I don't even know.
I did. I never beat it though, because those games were not.
That's what I hear.
Those are some of the worst Zelda games ever made.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. They are.
I've got to give them a shot only so I can agree with you from experience.
They're not trash. Well, I never played Spirit Tracks because I disliked the first one, Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
I think I probably got halfway through it and I was just like, I don't want to play this anymore.
Are those the direct sequels to Wind Waker?
I don't know. I don't remember. They definitely have the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But they don't look nearly as good.
Strange times.
Strange times.
Cool. Yeah, so Saria, however you want to say her name, pardon my burp, she is the Forest Temple Guardian. She is the sage. She pops out and says, "Hey, what's up, dude? As it turns out, I always knew we couldn't really be together. We couldn't live in the same realm. I knew you were different anyway, but like, hey, also, like, I'm going to be trapped here forever. Like, this is sad, but like, okay, cool." What she says, though, like, in all honesty, this always upset me as a kid a little bit. Because she's like, I'm trapped in this other realm, and like, I'm doing this for the good of everybody, but like, I can never leave, so we can't ever be friends anymore. Pretty much.
Because I didn't think about it that much, but yeah.
These people, they're sacrificing their whole entire lives to be to be stuck in a realm that they can't really leave. They can, kind of, but not really. I think in the end, it sort of shows a happier ending for them, but yeah, it sort of just seems sad, She has to leave all of her people and you behind. Can never be a part of her previous home. And who knows how old she is. She could have lived hundreds of years enjoying herself.
She could be 10.
Yeah, she could be 10 years old.
They're all kids. It's hard to understand how old they are.
Yeah, but it's just kind of sad because you realize that she's sacrificing her existence to be the sage.
Yeah, it's a kid's game that
is very bittersweet.
It's very bittersweet if you think about it a little bit, deeper layer for sure.
This playthrough I didn't read in as much because I think a lot of new games have a really good way of showing emotion, camera angles, the effects, facial features are way better now, so you can do a lot more. But this game just felt like it was so full of emotion as a kid, and I still feel it. Still feel the emotions.
It really did as a kid. I still felt a lot of it as an adult, but like this particular scene, I didn't feel it that much. Maybe I don't know. Maybe my connection to Saria is just not as strong as yours was.
As it turns out, no. I'm just
you did say like she's your pixel crush in one of our episodes.
When I was a child, she was my pixel crush for sure. She's a little bit too young for my taste now. She looks like she's 10.
You mentioned that last time. Yes, we were children when we played this game. We were 11 years.
Yes. But that being said, sad times. She goes on to do her duty, and you move on. Sadly enough.
Yeah, we go back to the Temple of Time. Sheik teaches us the Prelude of Light so that we can always transport back there.
What's funny is I didn't do this until the very moment I needed to go back. I never went back.
You were just tearing through the game. I was just moseying.
Yeah, I didn't mosey back where I was supposed to because Sheik actually talks to you like she's only barely talked to you. Yeah. I'm like, dude, we've like had all these great conversations at this point. Like, why are you acting like I'm a stranger?
Sheik, you know me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know me.
So, other than Micah ignoring Sheik like a jerk. By the way, what did you name your character? Did you name him Link?
Link.
Capital I can't L. not. I literally can't not do it.
I've done other names that all sucks. It's Link. You're obviously Link, so why name yourself anything else?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was also Link. Anyway, we now know we have to go to Death Mountain Trail, back to Goron City. It's kind of wild. We go back up there. It looks very evil compared to before. It was already like a rough place to walk up to because, Death Mountain Trail. much more bleak now. And when you get into Goron City, there's one guy.
Only one dude.
One dude rolling around. You hit him with a bomb. Kind of a callback to what you had to do earlier. And his name is your name.
Yes. So I'm named Link. This little dude is also named Link, because it turns out he is the son of our brother, the Goron leader himself. And he tells you that everyone has been captured and taken to the temple to be fed to the dragon as a warning to any other race that might want to stand up against Ganon.
Brutal.
Yeah. Ganon has apparently revived this age-old eater of Gorons, this dragon that was defeated long ago by the, the hero of the Gorons with the famed hammer. And now he must be defeated again. As it turns out, your buddy, whose name eludes me, what's the leader of the Gorons' name again?
Darunia.
Your buddy, Darunia, is out there trying to save all the Gorons, and Link tells you should probably go try to help him because he's by himself. It's only him. All the other Gorons are prisoners. They're all going to be eaten. This sucks. Go save him. And that's what you set out to do.
Yeah, and I believe he gives you a tunic that will allow you to go into very hot places.
Yes.
So, back in episode, or I guess part 1 of this series that we're doing for Ocarina of Time, we talked about when you go to the top of the mountain, you can walk into an area, the crater, I believe it's called, and there's like a timer that you will die if you're in there for. Now you can go in there, no timer, because you're wearing your red tunic that protects you from the heat. Now, it fits the exact same amount of facial exposure, arm and leg exposure, but somehow you are impenetrable from the heat.
I like to believe that this tunic is woven from the hairs of Gorons themselves. Maybe also just vents heat very effectively. I don't know, because damn, that shit's hot, and like you said, you're exposed just as much as you ever were, but now suddenly you can survive.
Yeah, but it's red.
Yeah, but it's red, so yeah, it deflects the heat.
It deflects the heat. It's like a shield, a body shield of heat.
Hell yeah. This magical or semi-magical or non-magical, scientifically superior tunic keeps you from dying in this hot heat. And now you can go into the, the area that you were previously unable to and do some shit, which is rescue the Gorons.
Yes. We both just kind of made fun of the red tunic, but I kind of love the gear upgrades in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes what you look like. It's just cool.
Yeah, I love the tunics. My favorite being the blue one, which we'll get into. But yeah, so you do your thing. You save the Gorons once. You're going to do it again. You don't want your name to leave their mouths. So it's very much about going in there and doing some shit, saving some people. Darunia is there. As it turns out, you go in and you go through a couple of rooms. You run into Darunia, who's like, "Hey, brother, we gotta have a talk, but first, let's save all these people."
Now, let me ask you a question. I could not get over this. The way he says "brother" to you, I could not think he was anybody else other than Macho Man Randy Savage or Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, no,
hey, I got this, brother. You go help out all my other Gorons, and I'm gonna run in here and fight the dragon. All right, brother.
That's totally how he talks in my mind too.
It is like he's Macho Man Randy Savage.
I mean, you played through Breath of the Wild. That's kind of how the Goron talks anyway. That's kind of their character. Gorons are just like that, man.
I mean, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, dude.
One of the greatest. So if you just, by the way, sidebar, if you want to look up some good stuff, look up old videos of Macho Man Randy Savage. Look at the cream rises to the top. You're going to enjoy that video. It's unbelievable.
Oh my God. Rabbit hole time.
Yeah, so we won't go into that rabbit hole. So yes, Darunia. He has run in there and he says, save all of my Goron brothers.
Yeah, he's like, my dudes are in trouble and you don't help me out. And then we'll have a discussion, cool. I feel like his discussion is going to be like, why the fuck have you been gone for 7 years and where have you been? Or maybe it's like, hey, well, I want to catch up with you. I haven't talked to you in a while. Who knows? But in any event, I felt a little guilty as he ran off in one direction and I went off in another. But that being said, you quickly start saving his buddies, so you feel pretty good about it. This temple I really like. It's more about finding keys, I think, than any other temple. Yeah. Everything's very linear, and you're sort of like unlocking things as you go. You don't really backtrack that much in this temple, which I really like.
Yeah, it's just very repetitive. It's find the cage, somehow like get a key or hit a switch to get into the cage where the Goron is being held.
Yeah.
Then there's a switch or another key inside of the cage. Do that over and over and over and over and over again.
No, this mechanic is a little bit repetitive, right? But it also makes the story make more sense because you're rescuing every single Goron that's trapped in that place. Yeah. Because you have to be able to progress.
Yeah.
As you rescue all of them, you get your keys, you get your switches switched.
They'll give you a little hint every time.
Yeah. And, they're really happy to be free and not have to wait to be eaten by a dragon. So they all of them take off running. You're just a fucking Goron savior at this point. But yeah, you rescue a bunch of dudes. This is all about finding keys to progress. There's a lot of like jumping puzzles. A couple of times the room's light on fire. There's this one section where you jump on this platform and then this wave of fire is chasing you, which is really cool. But yeah, pretty much it's just all about finding keys, saving Gorons, getting through and not dying from fire.
Yeah. We have the enemy, I believe it's called like, which will suck you into it and steal your tunic and shield and then shoot you out and you have to kill it and then you get them back.
I hate that guy.
I hate that guy too. We got the fire keys, which are basically like fire bats.
Hate those guys.
Hate those guys too. I really do. The fire bats are annoying as fuck.
When you're a kid, it's way worse because they destroy your shield. As an adult, I just hate getting lit on fire every 5 seconds.
Well, they come from above and you can't see them, so it is very frustrating. The bats in general can be frustrating. Yeah. They're one-hit kills, but they just come out of nowhere. But a lot of this dungeon isn't based around enemies per se. It's around environment, and there's lots of lava, there's lots of fire, there's lots of giant stones, like boulders rolling around that are going to crush you, especially that one area where it's like a maze, but the walls will only turn into flame right when you get next to them.
I hated that so much.
Dude, there was a couple things in this level this dungeon that very... very frustrated.
I actually came really close to looking up that section because it was so frustrating. I was like, I know I need to go, which is across this firewall, but like I can't go across this firewall. And I didn't have the key that I needed to get into the door to be able to go through the middle section. I just did a lot of backtracking and found it. Yeah. But
there's the false doors too in that same room where you go up to them and you try to enter them and they fall on you and you're like, I'm already getting hit by boulders. There's fucking firewalls and then these doors are falling me and there's bats in this room too.
Dude.
That room was like one of the most frustrating rooms to me in the entire game. I hated that room.
Yeah, it took a fairy and a half for me at the end of the day.
It was very frustrating.
I want to say though, one of my favorite things about this dungeon is how it is very like I was saying, is linear. Mostly it's like going through rooms and continuing on. One thing I really like too is it's stacked. You're constantly moving up. And eventually there's a scene in this level where you open a door and it's this little narrow thing you have to walk across slowly. And below you is the beginning of the map, but it's like super far down. And if you drop, you're going to be fucking yelling for a minute before you hit the ground.
I didn't do it in that part. Earlier in the game, though, I did fall off. There's multiple areas where if you fall down, you fall to the very first area.
And you have to start all the way over.
Man, that pissed me off, though.
Yeah. I intentionally did jump down at one point because I needed to backtrack. Because when I couldn't find that key, which actually worked out because I went back and realized that there was a door that I didn't open and I got the key and it was great.
I mean, if you do it right, though, you never have to go back down. You're just progressing. So, 2 things to point out before we get to the boss. There is a mini-boss. She's kind of like it looks like a lady, like a weird ice skater.
I called it a fire dancer.
Fire dancer, yeah. It's fire dancer. And then when she moves around in the circle, it's like she has ice skating motions.
Yeah, I really like that.
Very cool. You can hit it with a bomb. You can hook shot the little creature that lives inside the middle of this ice dancer. Kill that. Pretty tough, to be honest. They take a lot of hits.
It's actually called Flare Dancer.
Flare Dancer.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much the tried and true method here is use your hook shot, pull the dude out. It takes a while, but it's the most effective method here.
The only reason I originally started to use bombs is because one of the Gorons
told you need the crop
special
of the
crop.
Yeah, I like their hints because they make sense, but they're so dumb.
Yeah, super dumb.
Yeah,
it makes it sound like they're growing opium or something.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, our special crop.
Gorons eat rocks. Maybe they get high off bombs,
Maybe that's why they had to get the rocks in the Dodonga's cavern. They're fucking addicted to that shit.
Hell yeah, dude. Those are the special rocks.
Those are the special rocks, man. Our society is literally going to implode if we can't eat them anymore.
Dude, that's, that might be the way that Colorado would go if you suddenly criminalized weed again.
Yeah.
Yeah. The economy would collapse. It would turn into a dystopian future. Just how it goes.
Mad Max.
Mad Max. Hell yeah. Didn't that happen in 2021 in the movie anyway?
Yes, it did, Micah.
I'm just waiting, man. 2021's already off to a great start. We're
We're
already almost there.
Fucking 8 days in, man.
Hell yeah.
Yep. All right, continue. Sorry.
Cool. Fire dancers, flare dancers, as they're officially called, are pretty fun mini bosses. You kill them eventually. You do your thing. You get out of there. Hopefully, none the weaker after your encounters. But they are pretty tough. And eventually, you get through. You save all the Gorons, and you finally get a chance to teach that dadgum dangle dragon what's up.
Yes. And real quick, though, we did get the hammer along the way.
I totally forgot about the hammer, but we did.
Yep, so we get the hammer. Honestly, the hammer is not one of the more important items in the game. It's really important for this dungeon, and then they bring it back later in the game.
There's a couple times that you got some rusty switches you got to hit with the hammer.
Rusty switches. You can hit boulders in certain areas throughout the entire world map, but I would say it's a pretty useless item.
Yeah, it's down there on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Important items.
Absolutely. But, we get it, and we need it for the boss. So anyway, you were talking about subterranean lava dragon Volvagia, I believe.
Yes, Volvagia. I don't know how you're actually supposed to pronounce this, but Volvagia is great.
Listen, Volvagia is literally one letter away from being called Volvagina. He's one letter away. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah, no. Volvagia is always what I called him because I think I was scared of even getting close to accidentally saying vagina. He's a pretty interesting boss. This is actually the only time I ever died in the whole entire game, was fighting him.
He's hard. I thought so too.
Now I'm telling you, the reason why I died is because I used up most of my fairies in that dang fucking fire room with the fire fences. And I did not replenish before I fought him. And I only had one fairy, and he took me out.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was not powerful enough. But that being said, my second go-through was way easier, because once you figure out his patterns, it becomes a lot more reasonable, a lot more manageable. So pretty much whenever you first face off against him, you're faced with sort of like this big platform that's covered in little holes where lava's coming out, and Mr. Dragon Boy sort of pops out of these holes, flies around and then goes into one, but then he'll also like pop out and sort of shoot fire at you too. So whenever he pops out getting ready to shoot fire, he's half in the hole. You got to hit him then. And that's when you hammer his face in a good bit.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's 9 things on the ground. Honestly, this is the closest I got to dying the entire game.
Yeah. This is the only time I died. And this boss is probably one of the more difficult because at this point, you don't really have the hearts that you're going to have later in the game.
Yeah, and a single hit takes 4 hearts away.
It's intense, man.
Any hit from him takes 4 hearts.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that I came very close to dying at the water temple after this. But this is the only one that really proved a serious challenge to me.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would have died. I actually did worse than you because I had to use 2 fairies.
Damn.
So I died, fairy revived me, died, fairy revived me, and then I beat him.
Gotcha.
I think I was playing a little too loose in the beginning, but I didn't know how to beat him at first. I really didn't. So.
Yeah. But eventually you do manage to hammer his face off. And he does this cool little thing where he flies up and then all of his little pieces explode. I always love the death animations in this game. And
this one is good.
Yeah. And fuck him, he's dead. He drops his mask, which turns into the heart container, which you get. 1 more heart. Hell yeah. And you've defeated him, and you've freed the Goron people from their oppressors / the dragon that was going to eat all of them. Who is probably too small to eat a Goron now, but maybe he's going to get bigger. I don't really know.
He's pretty thin.
He's small, thin. I don't think his mouth could fit a full Goron inside.
I mean, think of how big the Goron in the smith shop and the Goron at the top of the mountain who forged the sword, the Goron sword. There's no way. Those dudes could have choked that dragon easily.
Nah, dude. For real.
Why didn't they go in there?
Yeah, why am I facing off against him when there's a literal giant Goron just chilling
10 times the size 20 times the size of Link.
Maybe he's big, but he has brittle bones.
Yes. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard people with brittle bones forge the best swords.
That is actually true.
Yeah.
Proven.
So yeah, the dragon is defeated, and then turns out, as I think we were all expecting, the fire sage turns out to be Darunia, your brother. Brother!
Yeah.
How you doing, brother? That was more Beetlejuice than I think, Macho Man. But anyway. So yeah, he gives you the fire medallion. We now have 2. We've conquered the fire temple. The ring and darkness surrounding Death Mountain goes away, and it becomes a peaceful place.
Yes. Kakariko Village looks a little bit less bleak.
Yes, for sure.
And all the Gorons go back home happily. Now they can eat rocks and not be eaten by a dragon, and Ganon's power has been lifted a little bit off the realm.
Yeah, they're just doing their rock drugs together.
Hell yeah.
So
Rocking
yeah, man.
out.
We kind of assume at this point that we're supposed to go to Zora's Temple. Honestly, on the whole, you kind of just know when you become an adult that you're supposed to do forest, fire, water, because that's what we did as a kid.
Yep.
You know you're going to visit those areas again, and that is where you're supposed to go next. So anything you want to talk about before we head over to the Ice Cavern and the Zora's Domain?
Nope.
So yeah, we head over to the Zora Domain. Unfortunately, it's very different 7 years later, and it's completely frozen. We don't meet a single living Zora. The king himself is in a giant ice cube that is red.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, wow, that looks different than everything else. It's a red ice cube that he's frozen in. And when you walk past him, Jabu Jabu's gone. So you know, obviously, you're not going back into Jabu Jabu. We have to explore a little bit here. I vaguely remembered, but I had to wander around a little bit to remember exactly where to go. But you eventually end up into the Ice Cavern.
Yeah, so Sheik actually pops up before then and teaches you the song and says something about how there used to be an ice temple here that melted long ago but has reappeared above the Zora Temple or something like that.
I don't think you meet her, and she doesn't teach you that until the end of Ice Cavern.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, actually.
Because
who is it that tells you about that then? Somebody mentioned
something about that. I just didn't know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
Once I got to that area, I was like, all right, there's this giant opening, I'm pretty sure, and there's platforms that guide you there. Mm-hmm. I just didn't remember, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I didn't remember what I was going to do next after the Fire Temple.
The only reason why I popped back there and remembered was because somebody mentioned the fact that there was an ice temple that used to be above the Zora's place, but over time melted, and then that gave rise to Hyrule Lake. I don't remember who said that shit. It may have been someone in Hyrule Lake. I may have just gone to Hyrule Lake.
It could have been, but that might have been Sheik when she teaches you the song when you beat the Ice Cavern, because the Ice Cavern's super short. I mean, it's not a temple. It's a cavern.
But I'm fairly certain. I don't know. Anyway, long story short.
Well, I don't have it written down. You don't have it written down. So somebody guides us.
Somebody says some cool shit, and we go out there and we go into the Ice Cavern, and it is cool.
Very cold.
No pun intended.
Yes.
But a pun intended.
I mean, there's not too much to talk here. It's a mini dungeon. It's not a full dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
You gather some blue fire, pour it on some red ice. Understand that that's what you're going to need to unfreeze King Zora. But you do get a cool item at the end. Mm-hmm. You get the iron boots.
They're super cool.
You're going to need them.
Also, you have to do a whole entire little pushing the ice block puzzle, which we love to talk about.
Oh, yeah. It's like back in episode 3 or 4 when we talked about Goof Troop. There's lots of pushing things around puzzles. It's one of those guys, just in 3D.
Yeah, totally. And it's pretty fun. It's not too terrible. Never really makes you too angry. So, fun times.
Yeah, also, I think this is the first time we have the collect the silver rupees puzzle.
I think you are right, actually.
You have to collect a certain amount of silver rupees in a single room on the map, and that will unlock a door or an area where you can progress.
Hell yeah. But once you get that blue fire, you realize you gotta, all the things frozen in red ice can be released by blue fire, which you take over there, release the Zora King. I also released the shop, and then figured out that I needed nothing at the shop. So I wasted all that time. But that being said, He gives you a blue tunic and tells you, hey, the water temple, what's up?
Yeah, King Zora is very appreciative of you unfreezing him.
Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, the Sheik also, after you get done with the ice temple, talks to you, gives you the tune, the cool little tune.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think also explains that Sheik saved the princess, Ruta, and now Princess Ruta is in the ice or the water temple trying to save her people.
Yeah. So you have to do all these things to get into the water temple. I think you can actually get into it before this point, because I actually did walk into it and I was like, this isn't right, because there was a timer on there with the health. There's a timer because the blue tunic allows you to stay underwater indefinitely. Before then, there's a timer. So I'm actually not sure. Maybe you can beat the water temple if you know exactly where to go. But you have to get the blue tunic because you're underwater a whole bunch in this game.
Yeah, totally.
And so, yeah, I went into the water temple. I was like, this is not right. So I actually did things a little out of order. I then went back, explored Zora's domain, because I think I just knew from my old playthrough that you had to go to Lake Hyliata to get to the water temple.
Yeah.
Regardless, we are now in the water temple. We have our iron boots that allow us to walk on the bottom when you're underwater very easily. And we have the blue tunic that allows us to breathe underwater.
Yeah. And so this is generally considered to be one of the more tedious dungeons in the game. A lot of people really hated it in the N64 version. Now, there were some quality of life upgrades when it came to the 3DS version. They made things a little bit more obvious, like what direction you needed to go, where you could go to change the levels of the water in the temple. Those things are a little bit more spelled out for the player. But that being said, I remember this taking days when I played it as a child because it was just a confusing mess. And also, generally speaking, in this one, this is not a super linear experience.
Not at all.
You're constantly having to go up and down, change the water level to open this place, then change it back so that you can go through a room, only to get through and realize you need a longer hook shot than you currently have to be able to get far. But it's a fun one. It definitely is one of those ones where, like, I'm glad I got through it without looking things up. I think if it had been the N64 version, I would have been too frustrated and I would have looked things up.
Yeah.
But,
It's just, to me, this temple is clever in its design, but in its execution, I think it's one of the least interesting visual levels in terms of atmosphere and the design. A lot of just like plain colors, plain walls, not a lot of interesting things going on. Also, if you do need to raise the water levels, say you screw something up or you're just like lost, it can be a pain in the ass to actually get to the area where you can raise or lower the levels. So
I would have preferred if the center pillar in this level, the one that you can go inside of, was just the area and you could go up and down and raise it however you wanted. It would have been a lot nicer.
That would have been way better. Even if there was just a single area on the very bottom floor where all three were in a row and you could raise the level up or down. Yeah. Not even the central pillar, but you're right. Like central area, essentially, to raise the water level.
But I think, in all honesty, they wanted this to be a little bit tedious. They wanted you to feel like you were having to take your time and pay attention, and that you'd be disciplined, essentially, for not figuring it out. Yeah. I think old games like this being old in '98, it's not that old, but games like this typically had
It's pretty old, Micah.
I know. It's just
we were 11 when this game came out.
Yeah, but it's not the 80s old,
Fair.
What I'm saying is, though, like, the games like this were a little bit more, there's something to be said about the monotony of having to take a long time to figure something out, to be able to go through the process. I don't like this shit, but, people pay good money for things like Dark Souls these days. Yeah. That's all that is.
I don't know. See, but I think it's different than Dark Souls because you get better at the actual game of fighting. Yeah. Like you in dodging and all that stuff. I've never played Dark Souls, but that's what I've heard. This game, I feel like, is old in the sense that it's one of the first 3D games like this.
Yeah.
Because, in the 80s, there weren't 3D games. I mean, this is a totally different space that they were developing in. And I do feel like this dungeon is one of the best examples in this game of it feeling like an old game in design.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it was definitely it's a little bit outdated in the way that it approaches things. That being said, I enjoyed it, but also it was tedious. There were multiple times in which I had to do that whole entire raise the second level to raise the third level to go back down to fucking drain it all again to try to do it over again. It did get a little tedious. I didn't look things up, like I said, on this one, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. But also, dude, like I said, if it had been the N64 version without the obvious areas you had to go to raise and lower the water, I may have lost it on this level. But I think ultimately it was a pretty fun time. And I do want to point out that it does include a really great power-up to the hookshot, which extends its range.
It's great.
And probably my favorite mini-boss in the whole entire game.
Yeah, so I think we need to talk about that. Before we get to the mini-boss, though, there's just one other thing I want to point out. You meet Princess Ruto pretty early on. You have to get some of the things. And she refers to you as her fiance the whole time. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you do reconnect. But yes, let's talk about the mini-boss. I think it might be the coolest design in the whole game.
Yeah. So this room is really cool. Whenever you go into this room, it looks open. It literally looks like outside. It sort of looks like infinite. I think the original N64 version, it was just like a white room that you really couldn't see that far in. But I think in this, it sort of looks like an infinity pool in a way.
They tried to give that effect in the 64. It might have been a little bit like foggier looking, but yeah.
But that being said, you sort of go to the edge of the room and you realize the door's locked. But whenever you turn around, you sort of see this like shimmer, and then it attacks you, and that's what you begin to fight. Nega Link, who is my favorite mini boss. It's literally like a negative of Link. As you hit him, he begins to materialize more and more, and he darkens up. But you can tell literally he's like Link, but he's like all black, wearing all black with red eyes. Mm-hmm. So, but he attacks and fights you like you would attack and fight yourself. Same moves, same general way of doing things. But also, if you try to slice on him, he has this way of like literally jumping on top of your sword, which is super annoying, but kind of cool at the same time.
He jumps on your sword and then like hits you, kind of like mocking you.
Yeah. Fuck, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, this room is so cool. One, you're fighting yourself. That is unexpected and cool in itself. But for me, it's really the design of the room, because you mentioned like the mirrored effect, but there's also a single dead tree in the middle. Mm-hmm. I think that's very cool too. And even where the exit door and the entry door in the room are, like before you walk in, you kind of understand like where you're at spatially. But when you're in there, everything just looks like you're in this giant lake, floating on this lake with a tiny little island. But the entry and exit door almost have like a Japanese temple design.
Yeah.
It just looks very cool. I don't know. It's just unexpected, comes out of nowhere in the temple.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. I think it's one of the coolest.
It just feels like you're kind of transported into a different realm for a second. But yeah, I find this boss fight to be fun. Overall, it wasn't too difficult this playthrough. And, once you get through him, it's just a hop, skip, and jump away from getting to the end of the boss.
Well, because when you get through him, that's when you get the long shot, and then you can solve pretty much everything.
There's like 3 more rooms you have to move through. There was one key I couldn't get previously that would get me to the door I needed to go to. Took me a little backtracking to find it, but I ultimately got through it within like, I think 30 minutes, the rest of it. And got to the boss, the final boss, who is a giant amoeba.
Yes, the giant aquatic amoeba Morpha.
I really like that. It's like giant aquatic amoeba Morpha. Yeah. But also it's like you go into this area and it's literally like a pool of water with a couple different platforms sort of like jutting out of the top of it. And, Navi says something about like there's something wrong about this water. And then it turns out all the water is alive. It's giant amoeba. And yeah, it's a pretty fun boss.
Yeah. Is it the best boss?
No.
I don't think so, but
it was annoying. Like I said, I actually almost died at this boss, But ultimately, Morpha attacks you, sort of like comes out of the water. It's this giant, like, watery tentacle thing that goes after you. And then there's this little ball that is, I guess, actually Morpha. And it'll, like, move through this water as it's attacking you. And you have to use your hook shot to pull it towards you and attack it before it manages to grab you and whip you around and losing 4 to 5 hearts. Depending on if it throws you into the spike wall or not.
The red ball, he's the gonad of the water temple. Mm-hmm. They only have 1.
Yeah, and you just got to crush it, man.
So they were not blessed with 2. And when you destroy the 1, the water temple fails.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's pretty cool, though. Like, it's a little bit difficult at first to kind of get the timing right. But once you do it, it becomes very easy. I literally got down to my last. I used my last fairy, and I was down to 3 hearts, and then it just like clicked, and I beat it.
Yeah, because once you figure it out, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, you got the long shot, but the level design is goofy. I was trying to do it on the platforms at first, but if you just move to the outside edges, it's way easier.
That's what I found. Yeah. It's also really good if you sit in the kind of like the corner, just off the side to the corner, and wait for it to get close, and then grab it before it starts to materialize into the tentacle.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, once you kind of get the timing down, it becomes pretty easy. You slice it enough. You know, the poor thing drains out, and then, you know, it sort of like rematerializes and destroys itself. Then you win.
Yeah,
you get the heart container.
Right before it evaporates, it goes, my balls, and then it disappears. I'm sorry.
That is what happens, actually.
Yeah. Well, what if it did?
That would be weird.
That'd be weird, and it would throw us all off. But
that would be cool. But yeah, you do that. The princess reappears, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I was gonna give you my eternal love, but I guess that's off the table now because, as it turns out, I'm the sage of the water temples. So, you know, instead, here's some shit." And she throws you that medallion, and tells you she's gonna help you in defeating Ganon.
She sucks, right?
She's sort of like that girl that doesn't get it, but like you also can't really fault because she knows what she wants.
But she's like so hot, you're like, all right, I'll deal with it.
Not really attracted to fish ladies, but sure.
What?
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 Nah, she's cool.
I'm just kidding.
She's cool.
I think she's my least favorite character in the whole game, to be honest.
I always found her to be really funny. I think she adds a certain amount of comedy to this game that's great. But yeah, she's a little annoying.
You're a fan. You're a fan of the Rudo.
Sure.
Fair. So we got 3. We got 3 medallions.
Hell yeah, dude. And the next area is going to be the creepiest.
Yeah. It for sure is the creepiest. So we're headed back to Kakariko Village, the one and only. And there is a cutscene where Sheik is there. The well has a giant shadow that blasts out. So tell us what happens here.
This is actually really cool. So I actually did not see this cutscene because I immediately went back and became a kid.
Oh, you already know.
Yeah, well, I knew what was coming, so I decided to wrap up the kid side of it
didn't.
first.
I didn't remember what was coming.
Long story short, earlier in the game, whenever you did some shit, you somehow ended up learning the Song of Storms. I can't remember why. When.
You end up in after, I think it might be Dampy's graveyard thing. You end up inside the windmill, and that music man is playing the song.
And he's like, I can't forget the kid played the song. It drove me crazy. Yeah. Here's how you play it. And he teaches you the song so that you can go back in time and play it and fulfill the prophecy of the kid playing it and drive him crazy. Yeah. You know, it's self-fulfilling prophecy here. But that being said, I just went and became a kid before this happened. But this cutscene is really cool. If you did it first, that's totally acceptable as well. So you go to Kakariko Village, and Sheik is standing in front of the well. And as you walk up, Sheik's like, stand back, Link. And then suddenly, like, the wooden structure above the well that, you know, holds the mechanism for lowering the bucket into the well blasts off, and this giant shadow, like, pops out. The whole entire city's also, or the village is also on fire. Worth mentioning. And then the thing literally...
That is worth mentioning.
Yeah, the thing literally pops out and, like, grabs Sheik and throws her around. And then also grabs you, and then you sort of like faint and then come to. She wakes you up and is like, "Hey, this shit's pretty fucked up, huh? You should probably do something about that shit."
Yeah. Honestly, it's funny that you remember all this because I didn't remember any of this shit, and I found this whole sequence not that obvious.
It was really cool though.
It's very cool, yes.
The moment when you walk up and then they're like, get back, Link. And you don't see anything going on except for the fire. And then the thing just goes like flying off the well. It's creepy.
Well, no, that scene's awesome.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps.
After that scene, though, like, you have to get the Song of Storms. And then you have to realize that you need to go back as a kid. Which it's pretty obvious you have to go back as a kid because Navi's giving you some hints. But it's not very obvious that you have to go back to the Music Man. Because honestly, I got the Song of Storms before the Forest Temple.
Yeah.
3 temples ago, because I got it when I came out of the Dampy's graveyard race run. So yeah, you're supposed to watch this cutscene, get this information, realize that you can't enter the well, the bottom of the well now, and you have to go back to Child Link. But it's not that obvious that you have to do that when you're
I remembered how to do this because
Yeah.
the well was such a disturbing section of the
It
game.
is. It's like the most disturbing section in the whole game. But yeah, you have to go back as a kid and then go back to the Music Man and play that song for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the well drains. It wasn't that obvious, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
My thought.
So what happens when you're a kid? You go back in time, you play it, the windmill spins really fast and it actually drains all the water out of the well. Then you can climb down to the bottom and enter this dungeon that you didn't know existed previously. Now, this dungeon, I'm just going to say it's one of the creepier ones of the whole entire game. It features a lot of false walls, a lot of weird enemies, these weird skull heads that turn on and off on fire all the time. I didn't really understand what was causing that. And it also makes you feel really claustrophobic. This is the inside of what looks like maybe like an old abandoned sewer or something like that. Constantly what you're having to do is like get down on your hands and knees and crawl through these really tight corridors. A lot of it's like false, like I was saying, false floors, false edges. You don't really know what's going on at first, and so it's a little bit difficult to figure it out. But yeah, essentially, I think the hint was that you had to find a way to see what you couldn't see.
Yeah.
And so once you get here, you sort of realize that there's something more to this whole entire dungeon. There's going to be a way that you're going to be able to get through it.
Yeah.
But you don't really know at first. And so a lot of it's is spent like being creeped out in the weird fucking desolate atmosphere of like tons of skeletons and walls made of skulls, and it's crazy.
Yeah, you can fall into the basement area, all kinds of shit. I mean, essentially, the ultimate goal is to find the lens of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the lens of truth, it drains your magic meter very slowly, but it allows you to see all of these hidden things that you got going on.
See things as they really are.
Yes, and this is about as creepy as I like video games to get for me. Same with the Shadow Temple. Same with BioShock. BioShock is like on the edge of 2 tenths for me.
Heard.
Which we have to do an episode on it because you've never played BioShock.
No,
right?
and I'm stoked. I got it ready to go on my computer.
That's going to be an upcoming episode. So essentially, though, you need to find the lens of truth. And in order to get the lens of truth, you go through whatever. You can go through every part of this dungeon. I think there is a map and a compass and everything. Mm-hmm. But if you find the lens of truth, you can leave. It's a mini dungeon. This is not a full-on dungeon.
Yeah.
The mini boss of this dungeon, we see him one other time or a few other times in the next dungeon or temple, but by far the worst, creepiest enemy in the entire game. Mm-hmm. We alluded to it earlier, or it might have even been last episode. I don't remember which episode it was, but he is the worst.
Dead Hand.
I didn't know his name was Dead Hands until after the episode. I wrote down creepy monster with plant hands. Yeah.
So this literally was an enemy that scarred me and my siblings as a child. I remember I was playing with my siblings, and literally we all got so scared we couldn't keep playing. There were tears shed. It was so creepy.
It's awful.
And this is the thing about this game, though. This is what I like about this game. It doesn't pull its punches. It lets you be fucking creeped out. And as a kid, you have to get the courage up to go through this shit. And it's part of the process of this video game telling a story, too. Yeah. So, but yeah, Dead Hands is so fucking terrifying. Long story short, there were just all these dead hands rising from the ground, super tall. And if you get close, they grab you by the head, and then this figure pops out of the ground, who is Dead Hands himself. Mm-hmm. And he sort of does this weird shimmy towards you. He has this really abnormally long neck and no discernible lower half of his body. He's more like a sludge pile down there.
Yeah.
And as he approaches you, his head sort of goes down. He's looking upwards the whole time. His head slowly moves down. His mouth opens, and he extends his neck towards you and bites you.
Massive mouth with these giant teeth.
Terrifying.
Awful. And you're trapped by these fucking plant hands.
Yeah. They are, I would assume, that his lower half that you can't see goes into these hands. I don't really know. They're an extension of his body, and they are fucking terrifying.
I literally did not remember this guy at all.
He terrified me so much as a kid and upset my siblings so much to the point where we had to stop and talk about it before we started playing again because, like I said, it was terrifying and tears were shed. He scarred me, so I remembered him.
I think I pushed it out of my mind. I'm not even kidding. I don't remember. I did not remember this guy at all.
Dude.
Not even a little bit.
To this day, I think he is the creepiest thing in the whole entire game. So.
Probably in all of Zelda.
Yeah. Dude, for real. But yeah, he's actually not as difficult as I remembered. He doesn't really do that much damage whenever he holds you down.
It's pretty easy, actually.
In all honesty, you just you know, to get him to appear above ground, he digs underground whenever you hurt him. But to get him to appear back again, you have to let the hands grab you, or you have to damage the hands.
Yeah.
Which you can do by throwing bombs or, you know, using other methods. But long story short, he's not that difficult. He doesn't take that many hits. He was just still the creepiest thing as a child. Once you get him out of the way and you get that, you know, lens of truth, that's it. You can leave. You can go to the, you know, go back to being an adult and go back to creepy Townsville where the shadow monsters set everything on fire and attacked you and your best bud, your best mysterious bud.
Yeah. And so at this point, technically you could go to the Shadow Temple before doing the well. Just would be like impossible.
Yeah.
But you can go into it. But now we're ready to go into it. Now, before we go into the Shadow Temple, I mentioned the Begoron sword earlier, and I should have mentioned this before the Water Temple in more detail. I got the Begoron sword. It's a series of trades.
Mm-hmm.
You get an item, you have to give it to somebody else, and they give you something. You take that item to somebody else, they give you something. Very common in Zelda games.
Yeah.
We talked about this in our Oracle of Seasons and Ages discussion. The Begoron sword does twice as much damage as the Master Sword, and I gotta say, it makes things easy compared. Now, you cannot hold your shield, so I took a lot of hits because of the Begoron sword, but it also kills them like twice as fast. So
Hell yeah.
Trade-off. So, Shadow Temple, let's get into it.
Cool. So yeah, you're pretty much like, fuck this. You finish out the well as a child. You're like, you know what? Being a kid's creepy. I'm going to become an adult. You go back. You know, Sheik tells you pretty much that, you know, to get up to this area, Sheik's going to teach you the song. And then once you actually play it, it actually transports you up to the back of the graveyard to an area you actually cannot get to unless you play the song that will transport you there. And that is the beginning of the Shadow Temple.
Yeah. You do a little Din's Fire, which is something you get from one of the Great Fairies. Mm-hmm. Light a bunch of torches.
I'm curious if there was any way to do this without Din's Fire, because technically Din's Fire, to me at least, seemed like an optional thing, but it
definitely
really
seems like an optional thing. And I don't think I used the green power one single time.
I didn't, actually.
Like, I literally don't think I equipped it and used it a single time my entire playthrough.
I've used it previously, but also it just sort of seems pointless to me now.
Yeah.
You know, I needed to save my magic for some cooler shit.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe there's a way you can shoot them with fire arrows too, but
yeah.
Or maybe you light it with one fire arrow and then light a stick and run around in a circle.
So I'm going to tell you this. This is the funny thing. So I looked up that one thing earlier. The only other thing I looked up, because I couldn't remember off the top of my head, and I came to needing it in this temple, was getting a fucking... Actually, no, I didn't need it in this temple. I needed it at Ganon's castle. It was to get the fire arrows, which I totally forgot how to get. So I looked that up real quick.
Where were the fire arrows again?
Lake Hyrule. There was this area where you had to shoot as the sun was rising. You shot the sun with an arrow.
Yeah.
Which is a super iconic part of this game. I remembered something about shooting the sun, but I couldn't remember where.
No, I remembered that. I just totally remembered that from my youth.
Yeah,
because that was such a weird, that was such a fun moment when I remember to do that.
It gives you all the cool hints, but it's such a cool moment when you do that, and then the fire arrows just float down.
Well, also when you beat the water temple, they lower you onto that little island right as the sun is setting to like give you a hint.
Yeah. And
I remembered seeing it being like, that looks familiar. It was like a crazy flashback to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Damn.
So anyway, we are entering the Shadow Temple. Very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a creepy place. Tons of false walls. There's skeleton walls everywhere. There's these giant, like, death-looking scythe structures that are spinning massive scythes that will cut you. Platforms that are there, but they're not there unless you have the lens of truth. It's just a creepy, horrible place.
It is a creepy, horrible place. It features a lot of the same kind of puzzles as the well did. Lots of, like you're saying, false walls, false floors. There's a lot of invisible platforms. You have to be able to use the lens of truth to be able to see. A lot of timing to get under guillotines that are constantly trying to kill you. A lot of enemies that drop through the ceiling you can't see otherwise. A lot of those stupid hands that you can't see. Fucking hate those hands. And also a lot of areas in which you're trying to solve mazes where the walls are invisible, unless you use the lens of truth, of course. Usually by this time I was like out of magic, so I couldn't. I had to solve a lot of stuff by feel more than by sight in this one. which is cool because you sort of like get used to it, you know. But yeah, you know, I think this one has some of the more iconic, scary bits of the game. There's a whole entire scene where you get on the boat and write it down, you know.
Oh yeah, that's very cool.
But you ride this boat while these Stalfos jump down and try to kill you. Anyway, long story short, this shit's cool. You ride a boat for a little while. You do some cool stuff. You solve some other puzzles. Don't get killed by dudes you can't see because there's a lot of those. Invisible scythe rotating platforms. A lot of stuff like that. All culminates into one face-off with one giant boss.
Yeah, very cool boss. A couple things we got to talk about though. You get the hover boots.
Oh, I forgot about the hover boots. Yeah, that's important.
You know, because every dungeon you get like one item. So you get the hover boot, and I hate the hover boots. You're always walking on ice with them, but you can hover over pits, and so they let you go marginally further than if you were to jump off of a ledge, like marginally further. Not that much further, but enough so that they designed the game so you have to use the hover boots.
Yeah.
And there's like some certain areas where there's fans blowing and lots of pits, and you're using the hover boots. Lots of the BMOS, which are the guys that if they see you, they'll shoot a laser at you, and there's like pits falling around and lots of those silver rupees. But just, I think the atmosphere of this stage is pretty cool. And I hated it as a kid because it was so scary. But as an adult, I gotta say, I thought it was a little bit more campy. Maybe not campy, but...
No, I think it's intentionally campy. You know, you had the guillotines in the center room.
It's a little sillier as an adult than I viewed it as a kid, and I had a little bit more fun with this dungeon, I gotta say. And then the boat scene was very cool. You fight a couple of those giant skeletons on the boat. I just thought that was a very cool design because it's going up and down, like floating in fog. The only other thing I wanted to make sure to point out is there's one last room where you get the boss key. And that's where you were talking about the maze area with the invisible walls, and they have all the hands and everything, and kill the hands, and they explode into smaller hands. Creepy. But there's one room where you enter it, and there are 2 wooden walls with spikes coming at you.
Oh, I love that one.
I had to go in and out like 5 times. I knew it was going to be some obvious thing that I would eventually figure out, but I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Dude, the same thing happened to me over and over and over again.
Yeah, I kept walking in and out, be like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? You have to light them on fire, and they disappear because they're wooden walls. Wooden spike walls. Otherwise, you'll die. They'll crush you. And then you get the boss key. So then, the last thing is another cool puzzle. You have to blow up some bombs that destroy a statue that create a bridge. You walk over it, and then we get one of the stranger bosses in the game.
Yeah, so this boss has a great name. It says none other than Phantom Shadow Beast, Bongo Bongo. When you first start this, you cannot see the center of him, only his hands. You are in a giant bongo drum, and he is banging away. And it's making you sort of like jump and move around, and you can't really, it's hard to like aim at him because every single time he hits, it like breaks your concentration with the aim. But the trick is you have to use the lens of truth to be able to see his center. So it's 2 floating hands. They're actually still disconnected from his body, but his center body has a big old eye. So you have to like eventually hit the eye. That's his weakness. I think you have to hit both hands to get his eye to become visible. But yeah, he's a tough boss. He takes a minute to get used to.
Definitely, I didn't know what to do at first. But yeah, I thought he was very cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed fighting him. He was difficult. I didn't know what to do at first, but eventually I figured it out.
I just thought, it's kind of like a silly design.
Yeah, bongo bongo.
You're standing on a bongo while 2 hands are playing the bongos and you're bouncing around.
Yeah, but he is the Shadow Beast that you saw earlier in the game. Certainly, he was a little bit scarier, I think, before you could see his body. But he's still pretty creepy looking. Those sort of like floating hands that look like they're cut off. Creepy.
I mean, how creepy can something playing the bongos really be, though?
Yeah. Overall, not as creepy as Dead Hands, to be totally honest.
Yeah, Dead Hands is haunting my dreams to this day until the day I die.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, you kill him, you take him out. Who is the little guardian of this temple?
Well, she is not little, sir. She is the rough and tough and buff Impa, our favorite Sheikah, guardian and nanny to the one and only Zelda.
Yes.
from our youth. Yeah, she is the Sage of Shadow, and she looks good.
She's a fucking fantastically strong and a strong-willed individual who is now going to join you on the side of good and righteousness to fight the evil Ganon, helping you via the spiritual realm.
Yeah, they have a weight room in the realm of sages,
as it turns out.
Yeah.
So yeah, Impa joins your side to help you defeat Ganon, and you got some pretty cool items along the way. And the Shadow Temple is now done. Kokoriko Village is now not covered in scary shit anymore.
Yeah, that is a unique dungeon, I gotta say.
Yeah, unique for sure.
Very unique. Okay, then Mr. Micah Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more dungeon to go before the big standoff.
We do.
And I really like this next one. We have to go to an area that we have not visited at all. The entire game at this point. You could have. You didn't need to, though.
We are heading to the Valley of Gerudos, Gerudo Valley.
Yes. Maybe my favorite Zelda music in terms of pure music. It's not like the most iconic to me and not the most memorable, but I think it's maybe my favorite tune.
It's cool because it's a lot more like upbeat and quick than anything. It doesn't sound like any other song that's played at this point. The style is like classic. It sounds like classical Spanish guitar.
Exactly, yeah. It's like the flamenco style. It's just beautiful. And if you look on YouTube, you can find a million videos of amazing guitar players playing like flamenco style Gerudo Valley.
It's a great song. It's a great area. It's cool. It's a desert. Really quickly, whenever you get into this area, you are faced with a bridge that is down. Once you hookshot to the other side, talking with the foreman, you realize this is the same foreman that was in the Kokoriko village as a child. Only all of his workers, all these flamboyant, running around, happy dudes, have all tried to go join the Gerudo thieves, who are a band of all women thieves.
Yes.
And he's like, please go get them back because I need them to build this bridge. This is stupid.
Yeah, they have skipped their way straight into Gerudo prison.
As it turns out, these ladies didn't want these dudes to join them, and they locked them all away.
Yeah.
So,
which you also get locked away when you enter the Gerudo Valley. They immediately arrest you, put you in jail, but they, for some reason, leave you with all of your items, and so you can hook shot into a wooden window above, and then you escape. And then the next scene really is just you running around the fortress trying to release all the prisoners. Every time you find a prisoner, they give you a little tidbit of information. They say, "Oh no, look out!" And behind you, there is a red Gerudo warrior that you battle like 5 different times.
And if they get you with one of those heavy hits, it's right back to the cell with you.
Yes. You don't want to go back to the cell.
No, because long story short, it took me about 45 minutes to get through this section.
Me too. It took me a long time.
Yeah. Because you have to do a lot of backtracking. It's not always super obvious where you need to go. And it's a maze of an area. As well as the fact that if you get seen by anybody, you don't get to fight them. They just throw you right back into the cell.
It's not even a maze, per se. They don't give you any way to know where you've been. And it's like a bunch of same-looking structures with doorways that you don't know where you're coming in and out of.
Exactly.
It's really hard to keep track of where you went in and out of. You're just wandering around.
I think the final guy I couldn't get was somewhere in the back right of the complex. I just couldn't figure out how to get to the back right of the complex. You know,
I was, tromping around the top for a while. Like, where the fuck am I supposed to go? Now, you can shoot the Gerudos with arrows and a hook shot. Knocks them out, which definitely helps when you're inside. So, I don't know. But yeah, it's a lot of wandering around. It could have been designed better, I think.
The design was a little bit annoying. At the very least, we should have had a map so that we could tell which rooms we had not yet been into.
Yeah.
But that being said, it was fine. I got through it in 45 minutes, which sucked. But also, once I did, it felt very relieving to have that out of the way. Also, when you finally do rescue everyone, the leader of the Gerudo Valley warrior women was like, "Oh, you're pretty cool. I used to think men sucked, but like you seem to have some skill. And like, you probably want to join us, right? So like, you can like hang out now. We'll be fine. We're not going to arrest you. You're cool."
Yeah, she gives you the like Gerudo token or whatever it is, and you can just wander around now.
Yeah, now you can talk to all the people that throw you in jail previously, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?"
Yeah.
I think it also opens up a shooting range, which I didn't have a chance to go through. At this point, it was 3:00 last night, so I wanted to finish up.
The shooting range doesn't actually open up until after you beat the Shadow Temple.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, you might be right. I didn't actually do it either because I just didn't know it was a thing. After I beat the game, I looked up things that I could have done, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I could have done that.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I definitely did do it because when I was reading through it, I was like, yeah, I did get the ice arrows. That's how you get the ice arrows.
Yeah, I remember doing that too.
Totally optional, pretty much irrelevant thing you don't need.
Yeah. Fun times if you like magical items, but overall, like, it didn't really drive the stories. And I was pressed for time because it was like 3 a.m. last night. So I was like, you know what? I had to get up at work and be there at 10 this morning. So I was like pressed for time.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know you worked today.
No, I ended up being up until like 4:30 in the morning playing.
That's pretty late right now. We're probably both tired after working.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was fun. You know, like I said, I probably will go back and do the shooting range now that I've completed the game. But yeah, so once you finally rescue all those guys, you're cool with them. One thing I did try to go back and do, and I still don't understand how to do this, and I'm going to have to look it up because I want to finish this quest. You know how you raced the mailman who's hanging on the tent? I don't know how to win. Single time he beats you by 1 second.
I don't know. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I think there's something else you have to do. But I literally raced him 5 times in a row thinking I was somehow going to do it.
You know, my childhood memory is that was one of those things that everybody thought you could beat. Or there was something you could do, and I don't think there is a way you can beat him.
If I remember correctly, the thing is you can't beat him there, but somehow you get the bunny hood. And that's how you...
Well, with the Happy Mask shop, you give it to him in your youth.
Yeah.
You trade it to him. But I don't think you get it that it makes you faster. But I could be wrong because I didn't actually complete the entire...
No. I don't remember. I remember doing that when I was a kid, the whole entire Happy Mask quest line, but I didn't complete it this playthrough. But yeah, no, that was frustrating. I wish I didn't waste like 45 minutes of my life trying to beat a guy I obviously couldn't beat.
See, that's why this game is a time suck, man.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, you know, eventually I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the game out because, you know, whatever. You know, I was pressed for time and I didn't do the ice arrow thing. I don't know why I wasted so much time doing that shit though. It's because I'm stubborn, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I was like, you know what, time for the Temple of Light.
Very cool. The Spirit Temple is like, you have to go to the top of like the gate where it's the Gerudo are going to open it up to allow you to walk to the Desert Colossus, they call it, right? And she basically warns you. There is a sea of sand. You're not going to be able to cross it. And then you're going to get lost in like the windstorms, you know, the sandstorms and everything. So you're like, all right, I'll mess with that. I'm Link. I got courage. I'm going to do this. You walk in, you hook shot across the sand river. There's no way you could walk across that. It looks like it's like a total pit of death in quicksand. Hook shot across that. And then there's a bunch of pillars with some red flags on it, and you have to follow those around. There's a funny little thing in there. You can find the hippie carpet guy. He's like a merchant sitting on a carpet with like dreadlocks. Literally looks like he just left Burning Man. It's great. I want to be friends with this guy and hang out in the desert of Gerudo Valley as well.
Hell yeah.
But he'll sell you some bomb chews, I believe, for $200, which I bought because I had 500 rupees. I kept maxing out my rupees, so like, why not?
Yeah.
And then you follow the pillars for a while. You end up on a platform with a little piece of information that you read that says something about follow the ghost. And you're like, all right, I bet I use my lens of truth. Turn on the lens of truth. Sure enough, there is a ghost, a Poe, as you will. You follow him around. Eventually, you end up at the Desert Colossus. Giant statue, almost looks like a Hindu statue or like a Buddha statue.
Yeah. Female
version, and it's very cool design.
You know, everything's very stylized, and in this case, this is also very stylized. The Gerudo seem to have their own sort of like art form. It's very inspired by like Arabic, Indian, you know, Middle Eastern and Far East art.
Is it Shiva too? That's one of the other statues, right?
Yeah, it's definitely like inspired by that stuff. But yeah, you know, the giant carved statue in the side of this mountain, which also leads into the temple. When you actually open the doors and go inside, though, you're quickly faced with impassable walls
Yeah.
and a sign that tells you that you should only approach the temple with the heart of a child or something along those lines, giving you the hint.
Heavy-handed hint.
Yeah. Return with the pure heart of a child or something is what it says.
Yeah, not your disgusting adult heart. And I know my heart's gotten covered in growths of grit and
As an
disgust as an adult. Yeah.
Mine's probably just covered in chewed up bubble gum.
Chewed up bubble gum
at some point.
You know, the crust of day old stout.
Yes.
You know, I got some of that on my heart. Yeah. You know, the ash of a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that there.
Yeah. All those things that you once were pure as a child and you're not pure anymore. They keep you from being able to go through this temple. So you're like, okay, cool. This is the first time. Not the first time. This is like the third time that I have turned back into a kid to do some shit so that I can make this work. So yeah, you turn into a kid. I think Sheik actually also appears before this point and teaches you the tune.
Yeah, when you enter the Desert Colossus and then come out, she kind of tells you to, like, you got to go do this as a kid.
One thing I really like about Sheik, I don't think we've actually mentioned this, but every single time Sheik appears and tells you things, Link's always trying to walk up to Sheik and then something happens and Sheik gets away.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really cheesy after a while, but it's also like really funny. At this point, usually it's like, at one point Link tries to walk up and a fire like pops up and then he's like steps back, but then whenever he looks, Sheik's gone. Same thing, like usually Sheik will like throw down the nut and bam, blast of light and Sheik's gone. And this time, the Link walks up to Sheik and Sheik like walks back, and there's like a sandstorm, and loses Sheik in the sandstorm.
It's always very dramatic.
Yeah. There's also in the water temple, Sheik like climbs up a tree to get away from you and dives into the water. It's always very dramatic and really funny. It's just I forgot to mention this until now.
No, that's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sheik's disappearing acts are always great.
Splash.
Yeah. Splash. But yeah, so you learn that you warp back to the Temple of Time, you turn into a kid, and then you warp back to this temple, and it's a fun time. It's cool. It's weird. It's different. You're a child now, looking at the world through the eyes of a child. Yeah,
we actually get a very cool scene with Nabooru. We have not met yet.
Yeah,
she is a Gerudo female thief, of course. As everybody in the Gerudo Valley is female. And she explains some things to you that I just did not remember.
Yeah, I totally forgot about this too, actually.
So, the Gerudo, they're all females, but every 100 years, one single male is born, and then that male is the king of the Gerudo until the next one is born, you assume. She doesn't say that, but you would assume.
They're duty-bound to follow his orders.
And they are duty-bound to follow his orders. And Ganondorf is the current male king of the Gerudo. And he definitely looks like he belongs from the Gerudo. It's a cool design how they had the Gerudo are just cool to me. I think they're an interesting race and design and everything. And I did not realize that. I kind of had forgotten that Ganondorf was this like once every 100 years enemy, which again, in the timeline of Zelda, I'm not sure how that stacks up because things are so disjointed.
That's the thing. The Gerudo male is once every 100 years. I don't think it's always the reincarnation of Ganondorf. But Ganondorf, at least in this realm, is a Gerudo.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't know if it's always Ganondorf, but Ganondorf is in every Zelda game. And so is he just a Gerudo in this one? Is he always a Gerudo? Is he...
Sometimes he's not. Case in point, Calamity Ganon is not a Gerudo because Calamity Ganon is a spirit. But I think Calamity Ganon is the realization of this Ganon being locked in for however long. Or maybe this game is after that. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I always forget the time.
Yeah,
timelines.
The timeline's weird in Zelda. But at the end of the day, some important things that she points out is like she thinks Ganon's a dick. She knows that they're duty bound to follow him, but she's not going to do it. She's like, I'm a thief, yeah, but I don't go after the weak or the people who can't defend themselves. That's bullshit. And Ganon just happy to walk over whoever. She's like, fuck that. She's like, I have honor, he doesn't. So you know what? Let's mess this plan up. And she's like, you're a kid. You can get into this area that I can't get into because I'm too big to crawl into this small little hole. Help me out. And I'll give you something, to make it worth your while. Long story short is what she says to you. Yeah. Doesn't explain what that thing's going to be. But you're just like, fuck, okay, fine.
But you were an adult once, and you're like, she's hot. I'm play my cards right now as a child, and then I'll have an in later on.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so you crawl through a random hole into a temple, and she basically wants you to get the silver gauntlets, right?
The silver gauntlets will allow you to lift up these rocks to let you pass, and I think she actually alludes to that.
Yeah, and she says like, yeah, they'll make you move big things, but they're mine. Don't you try to steal them.
Yeah.
So you go through this dungeon. It's a mishmash of a lot of things you've experienced so far. Lighting torches. We haven't had to do that in a while. There's a bomb chew room where you have to like actually use a bomb chew. I believe the Spirit Temple is the only time you have to use a bomb chew the entire game.
I actually did not use a bomb chew in the Spirit Temple.
Genos crust, what'd you do?
You can use a regular bomb if you time things just right. You have to let it explode midair, but you can do it without a bomb chew.
My God.
I didn't actually have a bomb chew until the very end of the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the Ganon's castle, I think there's an area that goes up over a fence. That's where you had the bomb chew. Fair. So I guess you don't need a bomb chew, but I used a bomb chew. I had some. I bought some, like I said, from my favorite hippie carpet rider.
Hell yeah.
Carpet muncher. I'm sorry. Yeah, when you blow that up, light shines through and it hits this little sun tile on the ground, and the sun starts shining and smiling. Very happy, opens the door. Kind of tells you that this is going to be an ongoing puzzle that we have to solve. We have to hit the suns with sunshine.
Light is going to be a big play here.
Yeah. We go into a room, massive Shiva statue, Buddha statue again. Very, very cool. And we come back to all of these things later as an adult. So I do think it's a pretty cool design how they did this with Child Link and Adult Link. Now, we do get the silver gauntlets. Is there anything you wanted to make sure to go through? Oh, I guess we have that knight. We have a battle with a knight. Why don't you tell us about that? Because we do fight them a couple times in the game.
This is actually a pretty cool mini boss. So, this temple, you're solving half of it as a kid, and you'll come back and solve the other half as an adult. But in this first half, you actually do face off against a knight in your child form. And this guy takes a ton of hits to take out. He also has a very heavy, hardcore attack. Fairly easy to dodge, but at the same time, if it does hit you, it takes quite a lot of hearts away. But yeah, this enemy is super slow moving, but heavy hitting. Pretty much the trick here is to get behind him and just keep attacking him. Eventually, though, you do knock off the breastplate armor, revealing a slender frame on the inside, almost suggesting that this is a Gerudo woman.
Yeah.
Once you defeat...
That's what I thought.
Yeah. But it starts to move really fast at that point once you hit off the middle, so it becomes harder, hits just as heavy. A couple more hits, though, and it's donezo, and that's what you have. Yeah. And someone had said that they'd been experimenting with brain control, or like mind control, in this temple at some point, so I think this is supposed to be a mind-controlled Gerudo.
It definitely seems like it, because we will, later on, find that out.
That will be confirmed.
Yes, it will be confirmed. And it definitely seems like that, though, as you play them, because they're very robotic. They don't seem like they have
free will
or thought. And it's fun, too, because you have to attack them melee style. And then after you knock the helmet off, you can actually shoot them in the head with the slingshot, and they'll fall to a knee, and then they're easier to hit.
I actually didn't know that.
So you can do that, too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. That's cool. Yeah, but you take one out. You sort of finish that off. You get the silver gauntlets. And then Navi reminds you that you made a promise. You should probably keep it,
Yeah. But, unfortunately, we hear a scream. And down below, we see Naburu, our new friend, our future lover, when we're an adult. Is that weird to say? I don't know.
It's only weird because it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I guess. But every single woman in this game loves Adult Link. That's the only reason I'm making these jokes. Every sage says something flirting with Adult Link in this game.
That's true.
And she even makes a joke later on, we'll get to when she becomes a major character. She says something like, I should have stuck to my promise. Hey, you're a strapping young man. Anyway, so we see these two witches circling her and basically drowning her in the sand. And she's screaming for help or whatever, and they disappear back into the temple. And we get our first glimpse at a future boss.
Yeah. These two witchy witches, as it turns out, have some pretty crazy black magic. And she's like, Link, they're using black magic on me. Like, run, get away. sort of freeing you up from your promise of giving her back the silver gauntlets. She disappears into the sand and sort of like a blue purplish, what looks like a black hole. And those two witches go back into the temple.
Yeah. And so we know we need to come back as adult Link, because in the entranceway of the temple in the first room, there's a giant block that you figure you can now move as an adult.
Yeah, but it's already been stated that you could not wear the silver gauntlets as a child.
Yes. Very clear.
Yes, very clear, like 14 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, now what we got to do is go back, turn into adult Link, come back and solve the second half of this temple.
Like, when Nabooru was drowning, she was like, Link, your tiny hands can't fit the silver gauntlets, but come back as an adult and move that stone. And then she falls into the sand.
Pretty much.
Doesn't actually do that, but it's fun to think about. So anyway, yeah, we go back to we use the Prelude of Light. We go back to the temple. We take the Master Sword. We come back to the Desert Colossus Spear Temple. Yeah. Let's freaking go.
So it's pretty much more of the same. Once again, we figured out that the light thing is going to be an important aspect of solving this temple. You go through about probably the equivalent of what you went through previously to get to the silver gloves. This time you were offered another interesting and wonderful item, which I actually barely had any time with as a child because I rarely made it this far.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool too. The item is the mirror shield.
Yes.
And the outside structure of the temple before you enter it is that giant statue, like we said. There's two hands, and there's a chest on each hand. The right hand was holding the silver gauntlets. The left hand holds the mirror shield. So it's pretty cool that you went through this temple again as an adult. Lots of different puzzles. Again, you're an adult in the same structure, but you're able to access different areas because you have the silver gauntlet now.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. It's just pretty cool that the design that you are now getting the chest on the other hand, looking at the same view. And they made sure to point out when you were a child getting the silver gauntlets that there was that other doorway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it was just a pretty unique and interesting design.
I liked it too. And there's also sort of like a mirror of that whole entire thing. When you're on the inside of the dungeon, there is that statue on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually has two hands. And on one hand is actually the Triforce. And, once again, what does that tell you got to do? You got to play a song. You play a song, another, a treasure chest pops up the other, which is a small key letting you go through the next phase of the level.
Yeah.
So, love that shit.
Yeah, just very cool all around. I mean, there's one thing we haven't talked about, I think these are the Anubis that I was talking about.
Yeah.
The floating guys, they're like the pharaohs, and you have to hit a switch that brings up a column of flame, and you have to guide them into it. Weird little puzzles. Those are pretty fun.
I didn't have fire arrows here, but I just used Din's fire every single time I came across
Dude,
them.
I had fire arrows and Din's fire, and I didn't even think to use them. I did the freaking puzzles, and in hindsight, I should have just done that.
How do you get them to actually follow you? I couldn't get them to follow me.
They move in reverse of what you move. So they don't follow you. It's like you have to walk, or if you walk in a circle, they're going to walk in the opposite circle of you. So you have to, it's honestly, one of those rooms was the most, I fucking hated it. I fell off into the pits so many times because you're jumping over these things, and I guarantee you know what room I'm talking about. I did it like 10 times. For me, the least fun thing in this entire game, in Ocarina of Time, is when you have to do platforming elements with pits. Because it's just a little janky.
It is. I got used to it as a kid, and so I don't find it to be terribly difficult now, but it is a little bit janky sometimes getting that camera to follow what you want it to follow.
The camera following you, and it's just like, it's not like Mega Man. We just played Mega Man, which is super tight. It's a very precision-based platformer.
Yep.
This game is not, and those scenes, I just didn't have enough patience. So I was like, this should be easier.
For the platforming, one of the things I figured out when I was a kid that I still use as an adult, if you roll halfway into right when you're about to step off the platform, it will launch you at full velocity every single time.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I know that.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, like, that to me always
made...
I'm no fool. That to me always made it a lot easier, but also, like, it's not super easy all the time.
Yeah. Well, there's
like
only...
the camera gets stinky, for sure.
This specific room that I'm talking about inside of the adult section of the Spirit Temple with all the Anubis, there's like 3 or 4 of them that you have to guide into a column of fire to kill them.
I used Din's fire twice in that room.
I should have done that. That is the second most frustrated I was at in the entire game in terms of the platforming. We'll get to the other one because we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, I'm going to assume it's a fiery place.
It is not.
Oh, it's not.
No. And I think I know what you're talking about, and I breezed through that one.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I totally see why it could have been a pain in the ass.
I'm just going to say I didn't realize you had to do things in a certain order. That was the reason why I didn't breeze through that. Anyway,
yes. You get the mirror shield. The mirror shield allows you to reflect light and magic.
yes.
So there's a bunch more puzzles after this where you are deflecting light into those sun tiles. Very cool. I just really like this temple. I really
do too, actually.
This temple I just think is very cool. I also think the Middle Eastern, Egyptian style, I don't know that culture that well, and I'm fascinated by it, and I enjoy being in that type of environment.
I think the same way that the Hyrule Castle area is sort of a hodgepodge of all like Western culture. That's a hodgepodge of like Eastern, European or
Indian, Middle Eastern,
exactly.
Egyptian.
It's just a hodgepodge of every desert culture that's ever existed, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's very fun to explore. So then, we get to the ending of the level's cool because you get the mirror shield. You get back to that inside the interior giant statue, and you have to hit the face with light. You come down this platform eventually from light that you've destroyed from the ceiling above. You blast the face with your shield, and you melt the face on this structure.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Very, very cool. And then you hook shot over, and you're basically on your way to fighting our next boss.
Yeah. So I really like this. Like it was already established, the mirror shield can reflect light, but also energy and magic. And once you pop out, through the face into the next room, what are you confronted with? But the two twins, the witches who captured your friend when you were a child, now you're an adult. And they were like, you know what? You suck. Get a minion. And they sick their minion on you, which is another one of those beefy sword dudes.
Just a little bit beefier.
A little bit beefier. And also I love it. It goes to like grab the sword. It's not there. And then it just snaps its fingers and makes it appear. Yeah. I love that moment. This game knows how to put little quirky, weird shit into the game to make it funny,
Nintendo's the best at that, though.
Yeah, so good.
But
good.
The knight's really easy. At this point, we fought many of them because you fight some more knights as an adult. So it's really easy to destroy. And then we have the big reveal for this. You know.
So as it turns out, this knight was your friend, the Gerudo leader and lady of your love.
Yeah, Nabooru herself. And as it turns out, she had been being mind controlled, and she's like, that fucking sucks. We should go fight them. Yeah, and then Twin Rova's like, no, you're still our minion. And they like snap their fingers and turn her into a little ball of light, and she disappears.
They really don't, they're not very nice to her, And then, so you have to keep climbing up this thing. You're sort of chasing after them, and you go up into this area that sort of has, I guess, like a center platform around smaller platforms. I'm kind of trying to think about how this was arranged, but it's actually very similar to a later battle we'll have. But you climb up some shit, and they're like, you know what? We're going to attack you. Yeah. The two of us together, we're going to take you out.
Yeah, so one is very clearly ice-based. One is very clearly fire-based. You're on a platform, and there's 4 smaller platforms surrounding you.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. But they basically, one will shoot their ice or fire at you, and you reflect it at the other one that hurts them. Once you hit them both twice, they turn into, I think they say double dynamite.
Something like that.
We're double dynamite, brother.
Twinarova, turns into sort of like a sexy witch.
Yes, because they're very old.
Yeah, they're very old and very not sexy, and then whenever they merge, they become a weirdly sexual, but I wouldn't say sexy.
Sexual.
Yeah, sexual woman.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And she's sort of like half fire, half ice. Yeah.
So this is pretty cool because you have your mirror shield. You obviously know you're using this. And I believe in the owl, Rauru in owl form, when you're a kid, basically gives you a hint that you need to use their own magic against them. So you already knew going into this battle, if you were paying attention, that you were going to do this. So for the phase 2 of the Twin Rova fight, they will shoot an ice at you, you block it, and you see your shield like absorb it and charge, and you hear a noise. Dun, yeah. Dun, dun. They shoot another ice one at you. Your shield gets a little more powerful. So you're like, all right, I got to absorb things here. This is working for me. But you have to absorb 3 of the same in a row. So 3 fires or 3 ices. If you do 2 fires and then an ice, cancels it all out.
Yeah, no, I think it blows up and launches you too.
Yeah, it's no bueno. So you have to absorb 3 in a row, and then it'll automatically just shoot like a column of ice or fire at them. We'll knock them down, and then you go whack them real good with your sword.
Yes.
And then repeat. As I like to call, I wrote this in my notes so many times, I don't think I've said it once, repeat and defeat.
Repeat and defeats.
Yeah.
That is true, though. You know, once you figure out their weakness, it's just a matter of just doing it over and over and over again. But yeah, eventually you do manage to put them down. You hit them enough, and finally, they're like, you know what? Our final form is going to really do you in. This is actually a pretty funny scene in the game.
It's really funny.
So they split at this point, and they're like starting to talk about how they're going to do you in. But then they suddenly realize that both of them have halos over their heads. They're like, what's that floating over your head? And they're like, oh, it's probably the same thing that's floating over your head. And then they slowly start raising to heaven, and they're like, we'll get you in the next life. I think they said they're going to haunt you. And then they're gone.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. They're literally like, we will haunt you. We'll come back to haunt you as they float to heaven. Which I don't know why they went to heaven. They were clearly evil.
Yeah, they were evil.
But, it's a kid's game.
Yeah. But maybe, you know what, they were just Gerudo women who were fulfilling their duty to follow the king.
That is true.
Yeah. So could we really fault them? Yes, but, maybe I can understand them too.
Yeah. It gives them a little more context there.
True. So yeah, they're actually dead now.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a chance to move on. But not before you have the conversation with Naburu herself, who alludes to the fact that she wanted to bang you.
She does. She hits on you. She's the sage, the spirit sage, and she's like, "Ooh, hey, baby, how you doing?"
Yeah. You were probably, I don't know, at least 7 years younger than she is, at least.
Yeah.
So,
it's all right.
She just wants her a hot young one.
Once you're of age, it's fine. She's
whatever floats.
She's 32. He's 25. I mean, that's no big deal.
I think he's 17.
Is he? Is that what he's supposed to be?
I think Link's like 10 to 12, and as an adult, you were probably less than 20.
Okay.
And that's fine though, as long as Link's 18.
Yeah. Well, in Japan.
I was also going to say whatever is legal in Hyrule.
In Japan, it's different. Different rules over there, man.
Yeah. But long story short, you saved her, and now she is actually the final sage you were looking for. And she decides to add her power to yours. And now, that you've completed this temple, it's time to meet back with Zelda.
Yes. And we have, it's the big reveal, as I put in here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is probably like the biggest story moment of the entire game, I would say.
True.
You return to the Temple of Time. Sheik, our dude bro is there, explaining that the Triforce was broken into the 3 parts. Gives you a lot of the context that we've already talked about with the power, the wisdom, and the courage. Sheik holds up her hand and is like, well, ha! I have one of those pieces of the Triforce. It blinds Link. He's blinded by the light. Blinded by the light.
The song came on, too.
Yes, it came on. It was the most weird moment in Zelda history.
I don't know why they licensed that one song.
Yeah, they licensed it, and when he looks up after hearing that epic song from the 80s or 70s, maybe, I think.
Yeah, I wish that was actually in that game now.
That would be so funny. He looks up, and he has a look of shock and awe on his face. And what does he see, Micah?
So the mysterious dudely Sheik has now turned into the beautiful and illustrious Princess Zelda.
The lady.
Mm-hmm. The Lady Zelda herself. And as it turns out, Sheik is Zelda. Sheik has always been Zelda.
The whole time.
The whole time, this dude you tried to get close to, who ran from you, was your former child love interest and princess of the realm of Hyrule herself.
Shocking reveal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge twist.
Yeah, huge twist. I remembered this from playing it as a kid. If you played Smash Bros, you know this for sure. But at the same time, cool shit.
Yeah. I mean, I believe I used this in one of our opening segments recently as one of the craziest moments in gaming that I remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Sheik definitely does look like a dude, but Zelda just knows how to, make herself look like a dude, I guess, effectively.
Yeah, well, when it comes to, like, anime art style. It's not that hard.
You just wear, a couple straps of fabric over your face.
Yeah, every character looks semi-dudish, semi-hot babish.
Yeah, that's true. Every anime character could go both ways pretty easily.
It's like one pencil drawing away from being one way or another,
Truth.
Yeah.
It's just a couple lines.
Yeah.
But Sheik is Zelda, and Zelda pretty much tells you that, they've been helping you all along this whole way. They have the Triforce of Wisdom. You've got the Triforce of Courage, as it is revealed. Bam. Then whenever Ganon took the Triforce, because he was impure of heart, it broke off into shards. One of them went to her, one of them went to you, and he only got to keep one. That let him be powerful enough to take over Hyrule, but his power is limited. And he has come to realize the full potential of what only one shard of the Triforce can do.
Mm-hmm.
And she is like, he's probably going to try to get these bad boys, but, we got everyone on our team. We got everything lined up, and also his weakness is these cool, badass spirit arrows. Here you go, Link. Let's go get us some.
Yeah.
And then the inevitable happens.
Mr. Ganondorf himself freezes our lovely Zelda in what looks to be a large purple rupee. It's some sort of freezing device.
He traps her inside of money.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It literally looks like a large rupee, but I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's what it looks like. And she's like, no! And then he whisks her away, and Ganon says, you want to get back your babe? You got to come battle me at my castle.
Just like that, actually. This
Yeah.
is one of the few times that we have a voice clip in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ganon pretty much says, you know what? I've been watching you guys. I knew if I let you run around long enough that Princess Zelda would show herself. Now I got her. I just need 2 parts of the Triforce to take over this realm fully. My wrath is complete. It's going to get crazy up in here. By the way, if you want to try to fight me, I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
Same time, same place. My castle. Come get it.
Mono. Mono.
So yeah, as it turns out, Link is rearing for a fight. So he, next things you do, unless you want to get crazy and do some side quests, is go straight to that motherfucking castle.
Yeah, and I think we've covered most of the side quests at this point.
I still didn't have the fire arrows at this point, and actually, I had to go back and get them because you have to use them to solve a puzzle inside of the castle.
You really need the fire arrows. Yeah.
As it turns out.
You got to have those. So we go to the castle, and if you can technically go there earlier in the game, but there's a giant gap between yourself and the castle, and like a big chasm of doom. You obviously can't cross.
There's nothing but doom down at the bottom of that castle.
You're gonna have a bad time. It's gonna actually be worse than the game Doom. You're just gonna die immediately.
Yeah.
When you have all the sages medallions collected, though, you've amassed this team of badass sages. They create this rainbow-ish bridge and allow you to cross into the castle. And so now you are on the last stretch of the game. We don't need to go through every single room, but you get into this main room inside of Ganon's castle. And there is 6 doors, one for each temple, essentially, for each sage that you have to go through.
And above each of these doors is a little beam of light being shot from this little thing, into the center of the room, which is being covered by some kind of force field, keeping you from going up further in the castle.
Yeah. Now, I took notes on everyone, but every stage is literally just like a little chunk of the temple. So there's a fire stage, there's a forest stage, etc. There are a couple things I do want to highlight, though. Now, do you have some things that you wanted to make sure to highlight, too, from these?
I just want to say that I tried to go into the fire room almost immediately and had a very hard time till I realized there was a stone that I could not lift or do anything with. And as it turns out, I needed to come back and do that one later. And finally, when I gave up after like 15 minutes of fucking around, I was glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the golden gauntlets and the shadow barrier.
Mm-hmm.
I call them like shadow barrier, forest barrier, or whatever, because when you beat them, they say, I'm breaking the forest barrier, or whatever it is. So the shadow barrier room, you get the golden gauntlets, which allow you to pick up those massive stones.
This is also where you need the fire arrows. As it turns out, you have to light torches from across the room. What's funny is I tried really hard to just use Din's fire, but it did not work. So I literally at this point had to stop what I was doing, abandon all the sages who were there trying to help me, go get the fire arrows. I had to look it up because I wanted to get it quickly. Come back, and then it was A-okay after that.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's pretty quick to do that.
Yeah, it took me 2 warps and I was there.
Yeah, but the shadow barrier and the forest barrier, in my opinion, were by far the 2 hardest rooms.
Yeah,
and those happened to be the 2 that I did first. And the forest barrier is the one that I was mentioning earlier, where I kept falling off into the pits, the platforming.
Yeah,
not even because it was necessarily hard. I knew what to do. I was just wanting to run fast to do it because it was so obvious what you needed to do. Just in those old school 3D games, the platforming elements are sometimes very wonky, and they just they're not tight. You know what I mean? They're just not tight. So we don't need to go into all of these again. The only item you really collect is the golden gauntlets and the shadow barrier. Again, each one is tied to the individual themes. Now, shadow barrier and the forest barrier for me are the ones that I died the most. You mentioned the fire barrier, maybe. I never died in that one, but
that was because I didn't realize you had to come back whenever you had the gauntlets.
I got you. Yeah,
so
you
I
tried that thing, and there's a rupee underneath.
I tried getting over to that platform every which fucking way I could.
I got you.
Yeah, I got close, but never got there.
Yeah. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. So yeah, these are very short mini dungeons in a way, like mini dungeons, like 1 to 3 rooms maximum. But the 3-room ones are super short rooms. The fire barrier room is only 1 big room, but that's honestly all it is. None of them are too hard. So you break the barrier. The dragon mouth door is now available, and you walk through this dragon's mouth. And this is just like a very cool moment in gaming because you're walking up this winding staircase, clearly going up to like the tallest spire in Ganon's castle. Yeah. Stopping in some rooms, fighting some enemies, stopping in some rooms, fighting some enemies.
The whole way, just some crazy organ music that sounds like straight from Castlevania video game is playing too, which I really like.
More and more intense.
Yeah, it just gets louder and louder as you keep going up and up and up. And then finally you defeat enough of those, it's mostly like sword-wielding enemies, like the Lizzos and Stalfos and all those guys just sort of fight you each in every single room. Yeah, and eventually you just go up one last staircase and open the room, and what do you see?
You see Ganondorf himself literally playing a massive organ.
Which I love this. I love this scene.
So good. I forgot.
Dude, he might be an asshole, but he's musically inclined. As it turns out.
Very, very good.
Dude, he's fucking rocking out on the organ, and then he stops and he starts talking to you, and he's like, you know what? Fuck you. I don't really even remember what he says. I didn't write it down.
That's what he says.
Yeah, he was like, fuck you, Link.
Link, fuck you. Could you
really
imagine?
Anticlimactic, but Nintendo just knows how to do that shit, I guess.
They just know, man. They just... Oh man, all right. That scene is so fresh in my mind, but I've inserted that into it now, and it's just perfect.
Yeah, but I think pretty much what he tells you is that he needs the powers of the the other 2 pieces of the Triforce. That he wanted you to come up here. That this is all part of his plan. Yeah. And that now you're going to taste a little piece of doom. Yeah. Yeah.
Taste a little piece of that doom. And this whole thing is so epic.
It is so epic.
The last staircase you climb up, it's got these windows. They're bringing light in. There's like all these reflections. Yeah. You see this massive organ.
And this room is like covered in like walls, ceiling to floor windows.
It is so cool. I don't know if it looked this cool on the N64. I really don't remember.
Yeah, this definitely looks cooler than it did on the N64.
Man, I was kind of blown away at how epic this last battle was. It really was. Because, you have this big, this big standoff. It's the big guy versus the little guy. Link versus Ganondorf.
Hell yeah. You know what's funny? I was looking at pictures earlier, and I just pulled them up again for reference. The Rainbow Bridge in the original version is very basic, and the one in the 3DS version is all these different like spires coming out of it and all these different like.
Yeah, the original one's literally just like a wall-less rainbow bridge, right?
Yeah, and this one is like, delicate and cool. Ganon's castle looks very much much more straightforward in the N64 version. In the fucking 3DS version, it's really cool. They got the lighting right. They made everything look pretty nice. So, but yeah, just once again, I like the 3DS version. I like that they upped the graphics, they upped the ante. I think they added gargoyles for the 3DS version too. I don't think that was on the outside of his castle. But yeah, everything just looks cool in the 3DS version. I like it.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. So let's actually get into the fight itself. You're basically on this super tall raised platform that if you fall off of, you literally have to climb up, which I think is a really nice touch because I did fall off of it during the battle.
Yeah.
Ganon is not very hard though. It's epic. It's probably the most epic fight in all of Zelda. I mean, you can debate that. It kind of blew my mind. So it's just like fighting the second part of Phantom Ganon in the Forest Temple.
Yeah.
He's on the platform, but he slams the ground, so you have to get off of the main platform to the edges. Otherwise, he'll knock you off. But then he just throws lightning bolts, and you hit him back and forth.
Yeah. He hits them back at you quite a lot, though.
Yes, way more.
At least double the amount that Phantom Ganon could.
Yeah. We also didn't mention when you met Zelda and she revealed herself after Sheik, she gave you the light arrows.
Oh, I actually did say that, but...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, yes, you did say that then. So this is where you use those. You've actually been using them the entire time. You have to shoot the barrier locks, I guess, with the light areas to kill the barriers. But yeah, you hit the lightning bolt back and forth. When they hit Ganon, you shoot him with a light arrow.
Yeah, and then he becomes vulnerable. That's when he drops down to the platform. That's when you jump over there and you slice him a couple times. The more you do it, the easier it becomes because it becomes muscle memory. Eventually, you hit him one too many times, and you actually do manage to defeat this form of Ganon.
Yes, Mr. Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Well, like Ganondork. He falls, and he, in a rage, destroys everything in his castle. And it begins to fall apart, and Zelda basically says, like, follow me.
Yeah. And this is cool because this is one of the things I've only ever played this one time before now. I've watched my siblings beat this once, but I'd only ever actually played this section once before I played it. Not too difficult, but you definitely feel the fucking rush trying to get down to the bottom of this shit and out of there. You're walking around on the outside. Occasionally you go inside and outside. Zelda continues to open up doors for you using her magic. Eventually you actually do come across rooms where you have to stop and fight enemies. She's frozen by magic as well while this happens, so you fight enemies, you have to defeat them quickly because the timer is consistently running down, rocks are falling from the ceiling, everything's on fire, you want to get out of there quick.
It's epic. And I think I mentioned this on the show once. My senior year of high school, in my literature class or like writing class, whatever, English, I guess we called it back in the day, we had to write a story about a very memorable moment in our lives. I used this moment, this game, and my teacher read it to the class because she liked it so much.
Hell yeah.
So, hey, this game, love it.
Cool teacher, too.
Yeah. Oh, she was a babe, too.
Hell yeah.
She was like 55, and she was a very attractive lady.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Well, sweet. Yeah, you fight a lot of dudes. Zelda opens a lot of doors. You have a pleasant little stroll down the crumbling structure, eventually getting to the bottom and getting out of there as the whole entirety of Ganon's castle crumbles behind you. Down to the ground.
To the ground. Literally, I don't know where all the rubble went because when it shows the aftermath, there's like very little rubble.
I think maybe it fell off into that pit that we were discussing earlier.
I mean,
nothing.
We can assume, but you're still on this platform that shows a couple things there.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a lot more.
There should be a lot more rubble. Let's be real.
Let's be real about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a cool scene because the music cuts and it's totally silent.
Hell yeah. And I think Zelda is sort of like talking to you about how, wow, you guys did it. This is over. You're all good now.
She jinxes you.
She does totally jinx you. Because right behind you, who pops out of the rubble but Ganondorf himself?
Yes. Ganondorf himself. And after some painful screaming, he turns into the one and only Ganon.
Yes. painful screaming, some blue colors, transforms himself into the one and only big, scary-looking pig version of himself, Ganon. Not Ganondorf, not the King of Gerudos. This is pure evil Ganon.
Yep. And we have a pretty interesting battle because he knocks away the Master Sword. So you are swordless unless you have the Begoron sword. But he knocks away your sword and you're surrounded by a wall of flame, so you can't get to the sword. Now, I got to be honest. I had the Begoron sword. I didn't even think to equip it like an idiot.
Oh, wow.
And so I just shot him with arrows in his butt.
Yeah, that's what I did. I used the hook shot for a second, and kept shooting him in the butt. You can actually, whenever he gets ready to attack, you can actually go between his legs.
I didn't realize that until the second part of this.
So it's actually really fun because once you could just like go straight under his legs, get right behind him, and just do a lot of damage pretty quick.
It makes it so much easier, and I did not do that the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it took me a while, to be honest. I was rolling around. I was wasting all my magic because I was shooting him with light arrows, which stun him for a long time. Then I would roll around, and I tried hitting with a hammer for a while. I was like, is this doing anything?
Yeah.
It took me a while. Honestly, it took me longer than it should have.
I mean, in all honesty, it probably took me longer than it should have too, but I had fun with it.
Yeah. Now, fun story. So after a while, he falls down, and you've weakened him, and the wall of fire disappears, and Zelda's like, hey, Link, come get your Master Sword. I could have thrown this to you the whole time, but I didn't. So you run over there, you grab the Master Sword. She's like, you must defeat him with the Master Sword.
Yeah, final blow.
Final blow. I was an idiot as a child. I think I was just zooming through the cutscenes. I had the adrenaline running. After this scene, I still continue to use my Begoron sword. Forever. Like, no joke. Forever. It took me like an hour of hitting this thing. I was like, this is the hardest boss I've ever fought in my life. And I was like, let me try something else. I totally just missed that line. It was a game changer, Micah. You have to kill him with the Master Sword.
It literally is one hit from the Master Sword at that point. And that's just, it starts the cutscene.
So long. I cannot explain to you how long. It's so dumb.
I'm surprised that Navi didn't like tell you like, hey, Link, this isn't working.
She might have, but I was 11.
Yeah. Dude, with the adrenaline rushing, man, to rewrite that boss, it makes sense.
And I could be embellishing this a bit. This was 20 years ago. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but I remember in my memory it took like 3 days. I was hitting him for 3 solid days, and my 64 exploded, and I had to buy a new one, and then I figured it out.
Yeah.
Now, earlier I mentioned that Navi annoyed me one time. I think this was actually on the last episode.
Yeah.
It was this fight.
Which she wouldn't shut the fuck up.
She wouldn't shut the fuck up. She would literally say, hey! And then you would hit the button. And she'd say, I really don't know how to beat him.
Thanks.
And you'd be like, well, cool. Thanks for saying hey. And then you'd think she would never do it again. And then she would do it every 5 seconds. She would say, hey, I kept hitting it thinking she was going to say something different out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Never said anything but, I really don't know how to beat him. I really don't know what we can do against him, or whatever she said.
Man. You know, in his first form, Navi couldn't help you, you know? And then Navi's like, okay, I'm going to help you this time. But Navi does nothing.
Navi became my worst enemy.
The true enemy of Link in this game. The true mastermind behind it all.
Yeah, so anyway, we got to wrap this puppy up because this is the longest episode we will have ever recorded.
Damn, yeah.
And, my anus is still prepared, so we still have a little questions to go through. So, yeah, man, tell us what happens after that final blow from the Master Sword.
You slice him, you dice him. He goes flying up into the air, doing some screaming and shit. I think it's flying in the air, right?
Yeah.
And then, Zelda's like, now everyone, and she pulls some magical shit, some Naruto like hand movements, and then some other dudes pop up, all the sages you've helped free, and they all do the same thing. He's now sealed inside of the realm, and he's like, curse you, Zelda, curse you, sages, curse you, Link, and then he's gone, pretty much.
Yeah. And before he's gone, he says, when I escape, I'm going to murder all of your descendants.
Oh, yeah, he does. He does threaten to murder all of your descendants.
And you're like, oh.
That's another Link's problem.
Yeah.
Is pretty much what you say.
Link was like, meh, meh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we've won.
We've won. We defeated the infamous and terrible Ganon. And we've sealed a boy.
Yeah, and we have some touching scenes here with Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
She takes back the ocarina. She's more like, give me the ocarina now. And you're like, all right, yeah.
I like a commanding woman.
Yeah.
You give her
I'm into it.
Yeah, you give her the ocarina and she's like, I can send you back with the power I have in this ocarina. And she's like, you know what, it's been fun. You got to go back to your time. You got to be a kid. You're actually really a kid on the inside. This is kind of weird. People are hitting on you. This isn't cool. We're going to send you back.
It's true. We need you to really age into an adult man. You're confused.
You need a chance to go through puberty.
You're like
figure
Splash
some stuff out.
And oh no, you're like Big. Tom Hanks and Big.
Yeah.
Doesn't he sleep with a woman in that movie?
Yeah, dude.
Aren't you the one who told me that? I haven't seen that movie since I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
So.
Now this 12-year-old in an adult's body totally fucks this woman. And then when she figures out that he's not, well, she actually doesn't sleep with him after the fact that she actually figures out, because that's at the end of the movie. But yeah, no, it's a little bit creepy.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Dude.
Anyway, not to steer us into that direction. Tom Hanks and Big. So yeah, she sends him back into time, and then we have like the cutscene into the credits, basically.
Yep. She sends it back, and she's like, you know what? You got to go be a kid. You got to go live your life. Don't worry, it's all cool. Everything's fixed. We did it. High fives all around. She plays a little tune. She sends you back. You become a kid again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, cue the credits. And during the credits, you get some great scenes. Straight
up banger at Lon Lon Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
That is a party I want to be a part of.
Dude, people are fucking raging. You know, Malon's singing her song. Talon and everyone are dancing. You know, the asshole who works for Talon, who's been a dick this whole time, him and Talon are just drunk off their fucking asses, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like anyway. Everyone's dancing. The Kokiri children are out there too. It turns out you can leave the forest and not die, as we alluded to earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone's just raging, having a good time. And then also, you know, the bully, the Kokiri bully kid, sitting there with the, you know, Zora King. And they're sort of just like sitting off on their own because they're both grumpy. And I guess they get along. Probably as old as each other too, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then everyone looks up and they see these shooting stars, which turns out are the sages who all pop up and they're all hanging out. They're all buds now. You know, sages are like having a good time together.
Why don't they just go to the party though?
Yeah, I don't know.
They clearly can like take a form.
Yeah. They might still be physically in the spirit realm, but they are at least transporting their presence to this realm. Yeah. So yeah, they should just go join the Rager because it's quite a nice time. Gorons are down there dancing. Mm-hmm. You know, the giant Gorons down there like having a good time dancing too. Yeah, it's a good time. Everyone's singing, partying.
Everyone's there.
Yeah.
All of Hyrule.
Because the fucking Ganon's gone now.
He's dead? Well, he's not dead. He's locked away.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, after some more credits roll, we get the final scenes. The first one is Link as a child back at the location of the Master Sword, which is back in place. We see Navi, who just kind of unceremoniously flies away through a window, knowing you now know like she's no longer part of you because you're not a Kokiri child. And then, yeah, we have one final scene. Micah, tell us about it.
What is the final scene?
Well, Link in the castle gardens walks up. Zelda turns around and they look at each other, and she has a nice moment, and it freeze frames.
That's right, and it does like the sepia thing, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, this is my question. Does Zelda have all the memories of being adult Zelda too?
I honestly thought the same thing. You would think no.
But maybe Zelda does. Or maybe Link just explains to Zelda everything that just happened.
Well,
and they become besties.
They also just had that instant connection, though, from earlier in the game.
Yeah.
And she might have still had that premonition, and she might just know that he was the hero of time and saved everybody. I don't know.
Yeah, she's like, go do this thing. And then he's like, hey, you know that thing you told me to do? I just spent like 14 years of my life doing that thing, and I'm back, and I'm a kid, and it's like 5 seconds for you, so here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. Game over.
Indeed. We won.
We have recorded, Micah. We're coming up on 7 total hours today.
That's insane. But
for
also,
one game.
Damn, I'm not even surprised. For a 24-hour game, I'm glad that we were able to cover it in 7.
Yeah. I mean, lots of other things were discussed, but good stuff, man. Any just summary thoughts? I know we've talked so much, so we don't have to go into too much detail about it.
This game's just still the greatest. It still plays awesome. If you've never played it, do yourself a favor. Play this game.
Play the game. It was my number 11 on our top 10, not in our top 10 games. And we know it's going to be in Micah's top 10.
Yes.
Yes. I think I know where it's going to be. I think I know.
Mm-hmm.
But, save that for the episode where we do our top 10.
Indeed. I think I've said it in a previous episode, but you know what? Forget what I said. Listen to what I'm saying now.
I think you have two, but I'm just thinking through some of our conversations. I think I know where it's at. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah.
Anyway, prepare your anus, sir.
Prepared?
Because we're wrapping this up with some butt fun.
Hell yeah.
We can never say that ever again.
We're wrapping this up by going raw. Also, never say that again.
Raw.
Okay. So with this final session,
we're wrapping this up with raw butt fun.
Cool.
Okay, we'll combine them. Two negatives makes a positive, right?
We'll combine them all. We'll cut them all out. It'll be perfect.
Micah, prepare your anus.
Thoroughly prepared.
Would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Okay.
That way you get to have the final question.
Oh my.
If you were the sage of something, what would it be?
If I was going to be the sage...
It can be an area, an idea.
No, yeah. I like it. I'm going to say I'm the sage of beer.
Hell yeah.
Because I've been drinking beer tonight. We've been having a good time. I like beverage. And, somebody's got to be like the booze sage. And I'm more thinking like a small town where you give prayer to something and, when you're bringing out your newest brew, you're hoping that it wasn't soured by any bacteria or anything. I'm like the sage of the beer that you pray to bless your
hell yeah
your tribal beer.
I said this sage of food service, which was totally a joke, but some of the sages don't get to choose and they're not super into what they're sucked into. That would be me. It'd be sage of food service. Okay, fine. But all jokes aside, maybe the sage of like a forest or something. I don't know.
No, it's too late. I'm the sage of beer, and you're the food, and together we make a powerful team.
Hell yeah. What's your question, sir?
Last episode I liked the rankings and the stuff because it was just this game's all about the dungeons and the bosses and everything. So I have a lot of those too because this is now the adult version. So rate the temples from your least favorite to your favorite, or you can rate it from favorite to your least favorite because I feel like that probably makes more sense.
I mean, I think my favorites. I don't know. That's hard. So we got Spirit Temple, Shadow Temple, and then the ice / water, fire, forest, and the sixth one was the sage who we didn't do a temple for, right?
Well, that's Rauru. He doesn't have a temple.
Yeah.
I guess you could say Ganon's castle, but I'm really talking about the 5 temples that we go through.
I'm gonna say I think I like the Forest Temple the most because it's got some cool puzzles, mind bending, great atmosphere. So that's number 1 for me. I think number 2 is probably the Fire Temple, because it was fun. It got a little annoying after a little while, but there are aspects of it that I really liked. Then I'd probably say Water Temple is at number 3, even though people find that to be annoying. No, actually, you know what? Probably Spirit Temple, Shadow Temple, then Water Temple. I like the Water Temple, but there are aspects of it that are really annoying. Also, those other 2 temples have more good about them than the Water Temple.
For a second, when you said water as number 3, I was like, we are like totally opposite. Because my least favorite was the water, then the fire, because there was just a couple rooms in that fucking temple with the walls and everything. It was just I found very annoying. Still a good temple though. Then the last 3, honestly, any given day I could shift them around. But I had on mine now, I had forest, then shadow, then spirit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, cool beans, dude. Okay, so let's say here for a second, you're the sage of whatever it is you did. What's your magical weapon going to be? The one that embodies your sageliness. It doesn't have to be associated with
the beer. Does not have to be.
Does not have to be beer related.
If it doesn't have to be beer related, I'll say guitar.
Cool.
We have an ocarina. Already have some music. Sheik always played her little harp. So, obviously the instruments are very powerful in this world.
Yeah.
and instruments.
And it's actually like a guitar weapon.
Yeah, because you could fuck somebody up with a guitar.
I know you haven't seen Adventure Time, but one of the characters carries around this axe that's also a guitar. Like that.
Well, I mean, you could make an axe, like, people literally refer to guitars as their axe.
Exactly. I think that's like the double meaning.
Yeah, but you could
joke.
also, like, sharpen the, where the tuners are, and you fucking stab somebody with it.
Dude, hell yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go guitar. What about you?
Okay, so I'm gonna assume that I'm actually the sage of a forest or forests or whatever.
I thought you just said we didn't have to relate it to what sage we chose.
Yeah, but I mean, in this case, I actually want to because
Okay.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be a spear, but it's gonna be like a plant spear that can like grow long. So you can do like some cool like that was a weird hand gesture right there.
Yeah, for those who aren't here, he kind of did it from a groinal region there,
It was more from my
and he did it in a long.
You couldn't really see the other hand, but I was like growing from a hand. But think like Goku's extendo pole, but like a spear.
Yes, Nobu, I believe it's called, right?
Yeah, totally. That's very close to the sage. What's her name? The girl sage. The
Naburu.
Naburo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nobu. Anyway, yeah, it's an extendable spear.
Yes, a spear, Micah. An
Extendable.
extendable quotes spear.
Yes, that would be my weapon. Anyway,
Okay.
your question, sir.
You'll wield it well, I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
Which half of the game did you find more enjoyable, and why? The child half or the adult half?
I think I kind of like the child half more, actually. Because I think there's something really fun about being a kid in this game. You're definitely weaker, but overall, I think it's more fun. It's less scary and less severe, minus the well. And it's just fun to play the game from a kid's perspective.
I completely agree that it is less scary for sure. Now, had you asked me this question before I did this playthrough, I would have 100% said child because I just have fonder memories from it.
Yeah,
because I played it more as a kid. But on this playthrough, I have to go adult Link for sure. I just like his weapons better. I like the puzzles and some of the gameplay more. I think it's just a little bit more elaborate. And
yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of the scary stuff. Honestly, I just hate the anxiety. But as an adult, it was way less scary than I remembered it as a kid. I remembered hating the Shadow Temple as a kid.
Yeah.
11 years old, you feel older than you are. Like 11, you're still scared of that shit.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, hell yeah. What's your favorite power-up /gear/item in this game?
Uh-oh. We have a similar question here.
You can just choose one of those. Your favorite thing in the game that you used for your advantage.
Not even close. Long shot.
I also said the long shot. Yeah, I said the
shot.
extended hook shot, but
Yeah.
the hook shot for sure.
I mean, it's a weapon. It's a tool. You use it literally the entire game. It's so useful.
It's just fun too.
Well, I mean, as an adult, once you get it as an adult, you use it literally in every situation the rest of the game. It was my always equipped item.
Yeah, it was almost always on the back for me too.
Yeah, it was always there. So that I had that question too. So we're one down. Rank the adult bosses of the 5 dungeons and including the final encounter. So 6 total from your least favorite to favorite.
So the adult dungeon bosses, you said not including Ganon?
No, including Ganon. We are going to include Ganon.
Okay, I think obviously Ganon's number one
Ganondorf
favorite.
/ Ganon.
Yeah, Ganondorf / Ganon is my favorite boss.
Yep.
A lot of fun, I would actually say probably second. Ganon, Phantom Ganon. I would probably say Twinerva. Then I'm going to go Volvagia,
Okay.
Morpha, and then least favorite, Bongo Bongo.
Wow. So we're actually somewhat similar in some ways. So Ganon was for sure my number one. That scene with the stained glass and like the cathedral is just so epic.
Yeah, it is.
It kind of blew my mind. I wasn't ready for it. Then I said Bongo Bongo.
Oh.
You didn't like Bongo Bongo. I think I was just caught off guard. I kind of thought he was a goofy boss. I kind of enjoyed it.
He was goofy. I just found him to be tedious at times.
I guess I didn't. I don't know. I hated that you were bouncing a little bit and it was kind of hard to like stay stable. I just thought the design was really unique.
Yeah,
I thought it was clever.
It was a clever boss.
It was very close. I kept swapping back and forth between him and Twin Rova. I really liked Twinrova. I thought they had the most character of any of the bosses in the entire game, which I really liked. And it was a 2-part longer boss, which was cool. Then Phantom Ganon, then Volvagina, and then Morpha.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, my next question for you. What side quest did you not get a chance to wrap up that you regret?
Fishing.
Fishing?
I never caught the biggest fish as a child or an adult.
Gotcha. I just wanted to wrap up that dang mailman side quest. I want to figure out how to do it and finish it.
Yeah. I'm sad now. I'm going to have to go back and beat the fishing. I'm going to have to do it.
So you only have one more left?
Yes, sir. Last question of the game.
Would you prefer me to ask my next question and you finish it out?
Nah, mine's not too exciting.
Cool.
I'll ask. You asked what the favorite weapon in the game is. And, mine was favorite item, weapon, gear, whatever. I think it's going to be a long shot for us both. So my last question, is what is the worst item, weapon, gear in the game? What do you think is like the most meaningless, crappiest thing in the entire game?
I know you're probably going to say the hammer or the hover boots. That's probably what you're going to say.
I don't know. Will I, Micah?
Shoot, man. I guess, in all honesty, the one I really don't care too much for. I like the hover boots because they actually do give you a chance to solve some platformer stuff a little bit easier. I found a lot of times that, particularly in the Spirit Temple, you would fall otherwise to your doom and death, but then you always had a second to figure it out if you had those boots on, so they actually do help. Yeah, I'm going to have to go probably the golden gloves, the gauntlets. Because in all honesty, why couldn't the silver gauntlet work? Why did you have to go and get that? It just seems the most pointless to get, honestly.
They are super pointless. I'll agree with that. But for me, you're right. Fuck the hover boots, man. They're just a pain in the ass to wear.
Yeah.
And when you do jump onto something, you slide off it half the time, and you have to run backwards and hope you'll grab on. Now, the hammer, I actually don't hate that. I like the hammer.
Yeah.
The hammer is used a whole bunch in the Fire Temple, and you use it throughout, so I actually don't have a big problem with the hammer. It is just one of the lesser used items. For me, my number 2 is the bomb chews. They don't need to exist in the game.
Yeah, they're only good for like the little mini games you play them in. Yeah. Cool. Gotcha. Okay, my last question for you. Ultimately, playing this on the DS, did it upset you that you could not put it on the TV? And were there times in which you were just like, I just want to play this on the TV because it's epic and cool and awesome, and I want to see Link on the big screen?
I did think to myself, I would rather be playing this on TV for sure. But at the same time, there were moments where I really appreciated the fact that I would just lift the screen and be playing.
Yeah.
So at no point was I bothered by playing it on the 3DS.
I was actually, there was quite a few points in which I was like, oh my God, I just want to play this on TV, But also my hands, playing my DS, my fingers get like sore.
Yeah.
Because it's such a small little space.
My hands got like numb at times when you're like laying down and playing it. So from that standpoint, I totally agree. Yeah.
It's just like the 3DS just doesn't really have a good like grip to it. And also there are times too when the control pad's like wonky and weird on the left side. I just don't. Sometimes I just lose grip. It just doesn't have grip like a controller does.
I meant to ask you that when you're playing for a while, it gets a little sweaty. You literally have to wipe it off. Otherwise, you're literally like sliding down and you're using the bottom of your thumb, like pushing your whole hand against it.
That happened to me a couple times for sure.
That was annoying.
But yeah, I think ultimately this is the reason why the Switch is so cool, because you get this playability. You can just pick it up and play it. But then also you're like, you know what, I'm going to play this on the TV. And you fucking dock it and you do. So.
Yeah. Are you going to be butthurt if they come out with the HD version of this like super soon and we could have just waited like 2 months to play this?
No, because in all honesty, I'll just wait and buy it when it's on sale, if I ever do, because I have this game on the 3DS and I like it just fine this way. So I'll probably wait until the Majora's Mask version comes out and I'll play that for the cast.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
If they do that, I think I will be a little butthurt because I don't think I'll play it again. You know, like we don't have a lot of time these days. I can't play this game again.
Yeah. I mean, I'll play this game again. I'll just wait till next year or the year after to play it again.
I'll probably play it in 10 more years with my future son or daughter.
Heard.
You know?
Heard.
Mike, we fucking did it. I am tired as hell.
Same.
I'm so tired. That was a long night of recording these 2 episodes. And you out there will hear them a week apart. But we had to do them 2 episodes. That would have been a 7-hour episode.
Yeah.
Honestly, we should have done 3 episodes.
Yeah, we could have actually easily done 3 episodes.
Now that I'm looking at this and it's 228 minutes of recording right now, I'm shocked and appalled. And we should have just done 3 episodes.
Well,
hey, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And these will be like extra long. I'm going to have a lot of time to play Minecraft while I edit tomorrow, you know.
Micah, I love you.
John, I love you too.
All
Listener, I love you too. Kisses, high fives, hugs.
We love everybody.
Yeah.
And go play this game if you haven't.
Hell yeah.
Bye.
Cheers. Hey, you cool people. We just wanted to say a quick thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing with this podcast, spread the word.
And if you'd like to support future episodes, we've launched a Patreon. Head over to MediumRetro.com or search for us on Patreon.com to become a fan of our show. Your support is much appreciated.
Also, follow us on Twitter and Twitch at MediumRetro and at Instagram at MediumRetro Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.